said an exhausted Hedao Jen, kneeling in front of Zhou Zhen with one hand on the ground to keep from falling to the ground from exhaustion. Proudly lifting his head and smiling smugly, Zhou Zhen asked everyone around him if anyone else wanted to compete with him. He did not receive an answer to his call, as all the men were only imagining what would happen to them if they dared to challenge him. His level was almost twice as high as all the women present, and the women only admired his strength. Meanwhile, the winner of the duel, sitting in front of his computer, was only happy about it, muttering to himself that if only they knew how much money Zhou Zhen had spent to lord it over all the players on the server. How many different tests did he have to go through? Fighting a gorilla, confronting a pack of wolves, and facing a hellish battle with the fire dragon himself. 5 years. He had to spend 5 long years in this game, and finally reached his goal. The day came when he became the strongest, and everyone's jaw dropped when they saw his strength. Finally, when the opportunity presented itself, he said in a high-pitched, smug tone, "Remember my name." "My name is," the boy said, already imagining the standing ovation and how his name would be heard in all corners of the server. But suddenly, something strange happened. The computer started to work strangely, and strange lines appeared on the screen, which did not symbolize anything good. Instantly, his expression changed. Instead of a smug smile, horror flashed in his eyes, and the notes of despair could no longer be contained. "It's impossible. It tripled at such an important moment," he shouted. But the worst was yet to come. In the middle of the game's trotting, a system window appeared on the screen, warning him that his account was blocked due to the use of illegal software. He could not contain his emotions. His anger knew no bounds. "What the hell, really? All 5 years of my efforts to become the strongest, I was told that I lost," he shouted, punching the monitor with his hand. At that very moment, when his hand was on the monitor, he was strangely struck by an electric shock that sent a pulse through his entire body. The device malfunctioned and stopped functioning, and the poor player's body fell onto the chair, showing no signs of life. Suddenly, something happened in his mind. Something strange was happening to him, and he could feel it. But a thought just managed to slip through his mind. What the hell is this? Suddenly, his body lifted as if some force was controlling him and carrying him in an unknown direction. In parallel, his appearance changed. Suddenly, he felt something solid behind him. Something strange had happened. A weapon? Why would there be a gun rack in his room? Falling to the ground because of the bruises he had received, the player began to cough, trying to recover from such a strange journey. But then, the sight of 2 warriors discussing him caught his eye. "And this wretch is the commander's son?" one said. "Lucky you, he can be reborn," the other replied. "Get up!" one of the men discussing him suddenly said in a menacing tone. But Zhou Zhen continued to lie on the ground. "I said, get up. Are you deaf?" the man repeated in a menacing tone, with a look of displeasure. It was easy to see the displeasure in his eyes. Raising his head slightly, the boy asked whether he was dreaming or in a dream, trying to understand what was happening around him. At that moment, many people gathered around him, expressing their dissatisfaction, condemning Zheng for his weakness, and repeating that he was not worthy of respect. Standing up, the exhausted man said that it would not be difficult for him to slaughter everyone here without breaking local laws, even though he was in a dream. The burly man who ordered him to stand up had a sinister smirk on his face. He said, "Have you decided to turn on the man mode?" as he prepared for a possible fight. But their argument was suddenly interrupted by a blue-haired boy who called him Master and asked Jen to follow him home. Grabbing his master by the collar, he dragged him toward the exit, and the latter only managed to shout in an embarrassed tone, "Wait!" Trying to understand what was happening, the memories of the master's body gradually began to return. "He's so strong," he said, realizing what had happened and what could have happened. Indeed, it was not a dream. It was reality, the protagonist finally realized after being dragged home by the collar. As he disappeared from the sight of the men discussing him, and remembered more and more, he covered his face with his hand, so that it would not be seen that he was really ashamed of his words and actions. I'm in another world, Jen finally realized when all the memories returned to him and he analyzed everything that had happened to him recently. He had been hesitant at first, but now he was absolutely sure that he had entered another world, having received the final memories of this body. This world was very similar to the one he had lived in before he was reborn. But a few decades ago, a large-scale catastrophe called the space storm happened. It had a great impact on this world, greatly changing the genotype of all living things. It changed life here. Many people turned into bloodthirsty and cruel zombies as a result of the storm. But thanks to this catastrophe, many people awoke to extraordinary abilities, which were eventually nicknamed in this world star power. People with star power have explosive potential and abilities 100 times greater than the fighting power of ordinary people. Luckily, Jung's father is a 5th-level Star Force master in this world, and the leader of the city he is currently in. A father who is a leader is a good start, the boy said, but his voice didn't sound like a bit of joy, just heavy sighs. But despite his father's outstanding abilities, his son was still considered by everyone to be a junk who was incapable of progressing and improving. Suddenly, the door to the room began to move. It opened, and the father stood on the threshold and said, "Little Jeng, I'm back." Jung's eyes showed surprise and incomprehension. He wondered if this man was an incredible master, but he seemed like a very ordinary man in his memories. "I heard everything," said the father, patting his son on the head. "Don't blame your uncle." Jung's face showed dissatisfaction. Of course, if it weren't for his uncle, he might not have come to this world. The father suggested that he repeat the technique, hoping his son would have star power this time. He should definitely try because there is always hope. The father instructed his son to follow the breathing exercises he had taught him to direct his star power in the right direction, which should help his training. "It seems that even if I don't succeed in training, this dad of mine is helping me a lot, which is really very touching," Jeng thought as he performed the breathing techniques during his training and tried to awaken that power within himself. But then, hope suddenly appeared on his face. Just because the previous Jeng couldn't awaken this power, it didn't mean that the current Jeng couldn't either, and he had to make every effort to achieve the goal. The training continued. Time passed, but the training continued. And now 2 hours have passed since it started. 2 hours of training had passed, but no changes had occurred. The guy was confused and no less disappointed because so much time had passed, and he had not felt that star power. At the end of the training process, Jeng was already lying on the floor, disappointed that he hadn't succeeded and apologizing to his dad. "I'm sorry I didn't reach star power. I'm a jerk." With his nose down, he could only stare at the floor. Still, his dad did not lose hope and tried to encourage him with words of support. It was not so bad, it was nothing to be afraid of, and there was no need to be humiliated. "Even if you don't succeed in your training, there is nothing wrong with that. No one will dare to tell you off with me," his father continued. When he was finished, his father left his room and added that the training was over for the day, and now it was time to get some rest and recuperate. As soon as the door closed, a system window appeared in front of Jeng, asking him to log into the game. This surprised him, because how could this be? "Am I the same level 200 thieves from the game?" he wondered, looking at his reflection to understand if this was real. He decided to log in without hesitation, selecting the Yes button in the system window's context menu. After pressing the button and confirming the action, a strange sound was heard, establishing the character's authorization. Jeng was very confused when he saw such a beautiful girl in front of him. He did not know where to look so as not to give away his confusion. Meanwhile, the girl looked at him, not realizing what was happening. Finally, Jung stood up abruptly and turned to her. "Guess what I'm going to do," he said, reaching his hand to the girl's cleavage. After training, Jen stood up, taking his weapon with him, and let it out to guess what he would say now. But his friend was only glad that the master was in a good mood. Also, his physical skills table read, Level 1, Class, Robber, Strength -29, Physique, 10, Resistance, 10, Agility, 35, Experience, 0, 500s. If these are indeed the characteristics of a robber, then Jung is only at the first level. After selecting this item, a menu with skills, a weapon shop, horseback riding. Where does horseback riding come from? That button to quit the game. Jung was very interested in the section labeled skills, so he prioritized looking at that section first. He could only bring up the skill tree with his level and ability. After bringing up this menu, he began to look through it. One of his skills sounded like he could see a target's weaknesses, but this skill only worked on creatures below level 10. He thought about it. It seems that this system only has his skills and the characteristics of his previous game character, but only on the first level. Well, am I not a nobody, and this isn't a game at all? How can I raise my characteristics and level? Said Jeng, an aura of frustration covering his entire body. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, and a woman's voice said, "Sir, dinner is ready." He replied that he was not in the mood and would not be going to the table. The door opened, and a girl entered his room. insisting that this would not do, as he knew that most people outside did not even have the opportunity to feed themselves. Zheng repeated himself in an angry voice. I already said, raising the back of his head towards the girl. I'm not in... Before he could finish, he saw the beautiful girl in front of him, and his tone changed. He could see her characteristic window. A blush immediately appeared on his face, and a thought flashed through his mind. Is it true that I have such a beautiful woman living in my house? She abruptly waved him away, ashamed, and asked him in confusion what he was doing, his motives, and what he wanted to achieve. But Zheng answered her with a childish smile and curiosity, saying he wanted to check if they were real, pointing at her with his finger. The girl angrily replied that it was none of his business, turned around and left the room. Zheng only wanted to know if her parameters matched the written ones, but he was misunderstood. When he arrived in the kitchen, he saw the window with his dad's characteristics. He could see his characteristics, but the level was too high to recognize. If everything was as he thought, it meant only one thing: monsters outside the city. However, his characteristics were only slightly higher than those of ordinary people, so he couldn't face them alone and needed to raise his level. To raise his level, Zheng would need something to protect him, so he went to the city to find armor and analyze other people's characteristics. While walking, he met Lan Shi, the blue-haired guy who had saved him on the first day. He told him that the master had told the young master not to participate in the training, but he had come here anyway. Zhen ignored everything Lan Shi said and only asked him if there were any weapons here. Weapons? He asked in surprise. Arriving at a certain location, Lan said that they were now at a shooting range and said, "You, young sir," but he was not allowed to finish. He was immediately interrupted by someone already present at the shooting range. The tone was exaggerated and mocking. Wow, what a rare guest! Yan Baixun was training here. He continued mockingly, Does young Mr. Zhou have some free time? Behind Yan, his friend began to mock him. Don't you understand what's happening here? Are you refusing to be a soldier so you can practice shooting? But Yan waved his words away, denying it. Mr. Zhou, don't pay attention, he's just joking, as if he didn't feel the same way. But Zhen didn't take his words seriously. In a joyful tone, he said, He's right, I really came here to shoot, which surprised the bully. He took a prone position and began to practice, while behind him, people began to discuss that no matter how good a weapon is, it is no match for a warrior's skill, and that he should have fun while he could. Mr. Yan, I really enjoyed shooting. I think I'll take this weapon and play with it later. His friend thought, the owner liked it. That's good. Captain, this guy took not only the gun, but also a lot of ammunition, said one of the bullies. So what? He's just a jerk. Let him have a few days of fun, came the reply. Walking along the broken road, surrounded by an endless field, Lan Shi told his host that the exit from the city was ahead, and he was told that he knew about it. But then his friend stopped Zhen, explaining that leaving the city with only a rifle was very dangerous, so maybe he shouldn't do it. Don't worry, I just want to kill a few zombies to see if my level goes up, said the owner. Level up? Said Lan, surprised. This wall protects us from various beasts and zombies. The other side is hell, said she. Zhen was so impressed by its size that he only expressed surprise at its height. Suddenly, someone jumped from the top of the wall. It was a burly man holding a machine gun. Landing in front of the boys, the man kicked up a spectacular wall of dust around him, through which he was barely visible. It was Shu Li. He asked the boys what they were doing here and who allowed them to come here because it was dangerous. In response, he heard from his nephew that they had come here to help their uncle kill various monsters and zombies. With a big smile, his uncle began to pat him on the head, laughing and saying, Did you come to kill zombies, little one? Don't make me laugh. Get out of here. But suddenly, someone interrupted their dialogue and a cry of alarm came from the wall, saying that the zombies had broken through the defense. The uncle was about to run to defend the wall when his nephew stopped him. He was serious, and his eyes showed confidence and a desire to achieve more. Uncle Shu, I know that you all are looking down on me, but could you please let me demonstrate my shooting skills just once? Zheng said in a pleading tone, trying to persuade his uncle. His uncle's face showed interest, but also a premonition that something incomprehensible was about to happen, and a thought flashed through his mind. Is this guy really... As he watched his nephew's actions. Zhen took a comfortable shooting position, adjusted his sights to make it easier to hit the targets, held his breath, and began to aim at the targets, squinting one eye. Meanwhile, my uncle did not take his eyes off him for a second. Looking through the sights, the boy began to search for the best place to hit the target, the most appropriate place to neutralize it. The sights were in many places on the victim's body, and it seemed as if the place of the shot had already been chosen. Yes, are these the zombies? I can see their standard of living, but will I get experience points for killing them? This question bothered the boy the most because that's why he decided to do this. Zheng finally fired after aiming for a long time, but his first shot hit the zombie in the arm, taking very few health points off the monster. This proved that this location was ineffective for destroying the target. "I believe in you, Master Zombie Killer," the uncle shouted, encouraging his nephew. The arm shot takes too few health points," the nephew said, embarrassed, as he fired his first shot. Zhen started to aim for the second time. Exhaling and holding his breath, he decided to use the skill of scanning the opponent's vulnerabilities to find a really effective place to hit the target. Instantly, red rings appeared on the monsters, indicating their weaknesses. They were located on the joints of the arms and legs, and accordingly, on the most important part of the body, the head, without which it could not function. After hitting and neutralizing the enemy, the guy was pleasantly surprised to see a notification above him that he had been awarded 100 experience points for destroying the monster. Opening the window of his characteristics, he saw that his data had changed. He was not mistaken. He could indeed gain experience to level up his level by destroying monsters. Knowing that the level was raised for a kill, he immediately decided not to stop there and continue to follow his goal. So, the next zombie was already destroyed by a direct hit to the head. After entering the effect state, he destroyed enemies non-stop, one by one. Now, the next target was brought down by a shot to the torso, tearing it in half, for which he received another 100 experience points. Eventually, after a series of destructions, a level-up icon appeared above the boy, and a flaming aura appeared around him. "So this is what it feels like to level up," the boy said, once again experiencing what he had been trying to get for so long, and what he had been working hard to achieve for so long. "This is even cooler than a spa," he said, feeling with every cell of his body these incredible impressions and the feelings that permeated and enveloped his entire body, which he enjoyed with joy and pride because he deserved it. Seeing his nephew's skills, his uncle praised him, saying he saw potential in him. However, he still needed to practice. His nephew thanked him for the compliment. "When I reach the next level, I start glowing with a blue flame, but others don't notice. My stats have also gone up," Jen said, as he looked at his stats window. "As you level up, your skills increase evenly. You have free points to upgrade what you need, so we took advantage of that. I'll add 3 points to my agility and 2 points to my strength." Suddenly, one of Shuli's squad called his commander to report a find. It was a star crystal found in one of the destroyed zombies while examining the monsters' bodies. Zheng immediately rushed to the body. When he arrived, he asked if he could get this crystal out of the poisoned zombie body. He was told he was lucky because finding a crystal in monsters is rare. Star crystals are divided into white, blue, green, purple, orange, and red. White crystals, for example, are divided into 3 ranks: low, medium, and high. These crystals are the currency among warriors. They are much more valuable than ordinary money. 1 crystal of the lowest rank is enough to feed 1 person for a whole week, said the uncle. The crystals are also classified according to a hierarchy. 10 lowest equal sign 1 medium, 10 medium equal sign 1 highest, 10 highest white equal sign 1 colored lower crystal. "Uncle Shu, exchange this crystal for a few packs of cigarettes for your team," Zheng said, shocking him and throwing the crystal into his and his uncle's hands. On the way back, Zhen postponed the shooting practice for a while. His uncle's teammates were only surprised because they did not expect that his nephew, whom everyone considered worthless, would actually turn out to be such a good person. Half a month has passed since Zhen first came to the wall. The story begins again in the same place where it ended last time. After this period, the boy has improved his level quite a bit. It has doubled, and his stats are as follows. Level 4, Strength, 45, Physique, 26, Resistance, 81, Agility, 55. After spending half a month at the wall, the uncle asked his nephew if he had really given up on self-improvement and decided to spend his time here. He received the answer that no matter what fighting skills, everyone was still full of bullets. "That's all nonsense. We're just lower-level warriors. They say that 6th-level warriors aren't even afraid of bullets," said my uncle, looking thoughtfully at the sky and exhaling cigarette smoke. Well, that's something to think about, Jen said, and was told not to take it personally. Watching what was happening outside the wall, Jen suddenly stood up when he saw the patrol car his father had taken to scout the area outside the city that morning. Captain, it's the chief's patrol car, and it's being chased by zombies, one of the group members said, watching what was happening outside with binoculars. Leave it to me, Jen shouted, grabbing his weapon and taking up a fighting position. He was preparing to help the car by clearing a path to get through and away from the pursuers. Jen's father got out of the car that had pulled into the defensive position, saying, Not bad. You've made progress in marksmanship, the father praised his son. Boss, did you? Shuli asked in a confused tone. He lowered his head, watched the boss's dejected look, and realized that something bad might happen next. We ran into a little trouble. The zombies outside have been a little more active lately, and we need to beef up security, the boss said, standing in front of the car, looking down at the ground. That's not true. My father is hiding something, Jen thought, looking at him with a worried look. I remember well that the car body wasn't that badly damaged this morning when I left home, Jen said as he inspected the car. Besides, is it possible that a second-degree warrior was suddenly scratched like that by an ordinary zombie? Jen said in a worried voice, trying to find out what really happened. Dad, in the end, the boy continued to question his father. Finally, his father had to tell him everything that had happened to them outside the wall, what they had experienced, and what decisions he had to make as he ordered the car to stop. Chen-Chi, you know what happens after a zombie attack, as he tried to explain all his actions and decisions to his injured comrade. Boss, as the victim tried to accept his fate when the virus had not reached its peak. I'm sorry, the boss said, shooting his wounded comrade who was already infected, to ease his suffering and not put the rest of the team at risk. It was only then that I realized how low the price of human life is in this world. A thought suddenly flashed through Jung's mind, standing out among all the others. As he sat at the table, moving the food around on his plate, Jen reflected, trying to understand how low the value of human life is in the world he had come to. Why aren't you eating again? Asked Su Junwen in a sad voice, lowering her head. Huh? I'm not hungry, Jen suddenly replied, coming to his senses after being in thought. You should get used to the things that are happening today. Otherwise, you won't be able to inherit my place in the future, his father said at dinner. But wasn't that man your friend? The son shouted anxiously, trying to find a reasonable solution to everything that had happened without killing. For as many people as possible to survive, sometimes you have to sacrifice someone or something to achieve the goal, the father said, looking at his son sternly. Also, starting tomorrow, you are not allowed to leave the house. Housekeeper Sue, keep an eye on him. The father growled as he headed out of the room. The day gave way to evening, and then night. The next morning came. Su Junwen noticed a note on the table that the young master had left behind, which said that no one should know what had happened. After catching up with the master, Lan Shi said that he had agreed to run away with him and disobey the order. Still, the forest was too dangerous, and they would have been better off hunting zombies. I'm tired of killing them, but the level of the monsters in the forest is too high. I get too few experience points from zombies. I need to level up as soon as possible. After blocking the way, Lan Shi said that it was his duty to protect the young master and that he could not let him get into trouble. He kept answering, So, I should always live under your protection and be a second-rate nobody. I can defend myself, Jen said, pulling out his weapon and putting it into combat mode. He fired a sharp shot, causing his defender to scramble, but the shot was fired at the monster behind him. A gray shadow snake? It's very toxic. I didn't even realize it was hovering over me. The defender, who hadn't noticed the threat, scrambled to protect his master. But he's not even a warrior. How could he track the snake? Lan Shi thought in surprise, trying to understand what had happened. After performing an autopsy on the monster and examining it for crystals, Jung found out that the snake didn't seem to have any. Yes! Jung shouted joyfully, followed by a bewildered reaction from Lan Su, who could not understand what was happening here and what caused the master's strange behavior. Here, Jung Jo said, holding his weapon in his hand and looking into the forest, imagining what he would be doing shortly. La Su scolded him angrily. Sir, stop joking. Gray shadow snakes are hiding here. Even a third-degree warrior has trouble dealing with them. No, this is just a paradise for me, Jen shouted, seeing how many lifelines hung from every tree in front of him because there was a chance that each of these monsters could contain crystals. On his way home, while climbing the wall, the watchman noticed Joe, greeted him, and said that the master was returning early today and approaching him. Early? It's almost dark, replied the boy, who was returning from hunting with his broy on his shoulders, climbing the ladder, followed by Lan Shi. Also, how many times have I told you to call me Brother Joe, not Master, said Joe, patting the guard on the head. Okay, Brother Joe, the guard replied. Brother Joe, this is... The guard said in a confused tone, catching the crystal that had just been thrown to him, not understanding what he had done to deserve it. I don't need it. Spend it on healing your sister, Jen said, moving further and further away from the guard patrolling the wall. Thank you. Thank you, brother, he replied, sobbing, barely holding back his tears. He was wiping his teary eyes with one hand and holding the crystal in the other. Moving on, La Su asked if we would also go to take the meat to them today, carrying a sack of loot on his shoulder, and without waiting long, he received a specific answer. Yes. During these 6 months, most of the meat of the caught snakes was simply given away. You could have earned a lot of money on this, his friend told the gentleman. A little girl grabbed Jung's leg and shouted joyfully that she had touched her brother Jo Jung for the first time today. She was very happy to see him. Picking up the girl in his arms, Jung said to her, "You little monkey, where are you going? You might fall down." To which she replied, "Did you bring snake meat again today?" Lan Su, who was standing behind her, just sighed with relief that he could finally take off the sack. As he watched all the children surround him, his mind raced. I was carrying him on my own shoulders, and you didn't even think of me. Little, ungrateful assholes. Sir, I heard that these gray shadow snakes are complicated to defeat, and you took such a risk, the young woman said as she walked toward him. Auntie Lu, these snakes don't scare me at all, Jung said, trying to reassure her. Hey, old lady, how about this? Our young master Joe is a natural sniper. He hits the head on the first try. Even if the king of snakes comes, he will finish him off, said my uncle, holding the snake carcass in his hand. In the evening, when everyone gathered at the family table for dinner, there was a very tense atmosphere. Jung tried to avoid talking to his dad, but he failed. I forbade you to go out, but over the past 6 months, you've only made things worse, his father said to his son in a calm tone. Master, it was me who did not keep an eye on your son, the housekeeper said anxiously, bowing and trying to apologize. I don't blame you, Zhou Hongcheng replied calmly. Are those rumors that are spreading fast that you are an exceptional marksman true? The father asked his son, wiping himself with a napkin. Flustered by the excitement of being spotted, Jen replied, Hehe, there is always a window when all doors close in front of you. And, yes, I have some success in shooting. Okay, but I want to remind you that you should not get too close to the lower class, the father said to his son in a menacing tone as if to warn him. But why? The son asked his father in a drooping voice, with the disappointment of wasps not understanding the problem. Because one day they may become a burden to you, his father answered him, leaving the room and returning to his room. As he walked through the city, Commander Yan heard everyone discussing Zhou Jun and comparing him to him, deciding who was the more skilled marksman. Mr. Zhou doesn't miss. I choose him, said one of them. I also chose Mr. Zhou. He's a very good person too, said another man in the group, discussing the candidate's skills. What kind of a jerk is being compared to me? I'll show you who the real sniper is, said Commander Yan, furious in his head. Mr. Zhou? One of Yan's teammates, walking alongside him in the city, shouted in surprise. If you repeat his name, you won't be left with a wet spot, the squad leader aggressively reacted to his comrade. But, Commander, it's really him, he defended. Good morning, Commander Yan, Zhou greeted the commander with a smile. Oh, what a coincidence. I was just on my way to see you, Mr. Zhou, Yan replied, barely able to contain his anger and force a smile. It's a great day for hunting, said Zhou, ignoring Yan's words as if they were not there and walking past him. Zhou, I'm actually talking to you, Commander Yan aggressively drew his attention to him. Oh, you're talking to me, said Zhen, yawning. Mr. Zhou, according to the latest rumors, you are an excellent marksman, Yan said. Don't exaggerate, it's just because of the leader, Zhen said. I wonder if I can compete with you in accuracy, Yan said in a provocative tone. Nothing. You will soon see who is the best marksman in the world. I don't have time for this, Zhen replied, continuing to walk about his business. What? Yan replied angrily. How about a bet on a piece of green crystal? You are the son of a chief. Won't you accept my challenge? Said Commander Yan, trying to provoke. And what is the competition? Said Zhen with a pronounced seriousness. Well, how about shooting at moving targets? Suggested Yan. That might be too boring, Jen replied, shrugging his shoulders. Then what do you suggest? Asked Yan. Jen confidently suggested that they go hunting outside the city, and the one who brings in the most precious prey will be cut. Yan's voice was disturbed, and he said worriedly, "What, outside the city?" Fear flashed in his eyes, and a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. "Very well then, we will start in exactly 1 week. Mr. Zhou, prepare well," he said with self-confidence, hiding his fear. Sitting on a tree in the forest, Lan Shi called out to the master, "This Yan Baishun is a hypocrite and a very treacherous person. Don't let his appearance fool you." "I've given many such people. He's no actor," Zhen replied confidently. "But then, why did you agree to do it? Who knows what to expect from him?" said Z, confused, turning to his master. "People need to know the vicissitudes of this world," Zhen said, puzzling his friend, who did not understand what he meant. "Especially for arrogant upstarts like Yan Baishun," Zhen shouted, jumping on the monster and driving his sword into its skull. After killing one monster, another immediately appeared before him. But this one was no longer on a lemma. It could fly and was in the air. But in a few seconds, he immediately defeated it, saying it was getting used to close combat. At home, the leader was in his room, going through business papers, when a soldier came into his office and told him that his son and Yan Baishun had decided to compete in a hunting contest, to which he calmly replied that there was nothing to worry about. "On the other hand, we need to get ready," the leader said, looking at the papers and thinking about the following action plan because something big might happen soon. Scenery like this is rare," said an elderly man, smoking a cigarette as he watched the scene around him. "The fun is about to begin," he continued, watching many zombies move toward the wall. When he went to practice in the morning, everyone in town already knew about the competition and supported Zheng in every way possible. "Good morning, Mr. Zhou. Do well in tomorrow's competition." "We believe you will win." "Mr. Zhou, it seems to me that over the past month, you have been able to change the way people think about you. You have become a famous person," Lan Shi said, and received a joyful short answer. "Yes." "If you are too worried about what might happen, we can cancel the competition," one of the soldiers said to the leader. But in response, in a calm tone, he heard from him confidently, "No, we don't need to." "He knows what he's doing," the leader said confidently, smoking a cigarette and exhaling the smoke as he watched into the distance. "Let's go and take care of some business," he suggested to the soldier, to prevent unnecessary worries and get on with what was necessary. Standing before the gun shop, Zheng shouted, "I hope this is where I need to be," imagining what might be there. "Mr. Zhou, what do you want?" the shopkeeper said, looking at the gentleman in alarm. "Do you have a mighty bow?" he asked happily. Taking a thoughtful pose, the shopkeeper began to recall the entire range of his weapons. A powerful bow? I do have one, but," he said thoughtfully. "But this bow cannot be pulled without 300 jin," he said, digging through a chest of various weapons to find the powerful bow. "Nowadays, few people use such a thing. If you like it, I'll give it to you," the shopkeeper said, holding his hands with the bow to the young man. Looking inside the shop, Lan Shi argued that if the young man wanted a weapon with his aunt's name on it, he wouldn't be better off with a crossbow. "Don't you think a bow looks much more beautiful?" said Zhen, pulling the bowstring on his bow and aiming at a tree. "If you want to train your arm strength and accuracy, there is nothing more suitable than a bow," Zhen thought as he took a comfortable shooting position. "But he's not even a warrior. Will he be able to pull the string?" thought Lan Shi, watching his young master's actions in confusion. "Grandma, you have a thing over your head," the boy cried out in confusion, seeing an arrow stuck in his grandmother's hair. "What?" she cried out in confusion. "Not bad, that's what I wanted," Zhen said happily. "Mister, should we still train outside the city?" said Shu, worried, imagining what might happen if they continued to train here. Approaching the grandmother he had hit, Zhen apologized for scaring the old woman. However, her grandson said there was no need to worry, nothing was wrong. Taking the arrow out of his grandmother's hair, the boy started circling around, shouting, "Grandma has arrows growing out of her hair! Arrows grow out of my grandmother's head!" Suddenly, the armory owner grabbed the boy by the skin of his teeth, took the arrow from his hands and said, "Kid, don't run around with that dangerous thing in your hands." After getting out of town, Zhen continued his training. His next hit really hurt Shi because he hit a fly. Are you kidding me?" he exclaimed in surprise. "Sir, you did hit it," Lan Shi said, marveling at his master's abilities, and the latter just sighed in relief. Zhen opened the ability window happily and said, "Finally, the 15th level. Now, I guess I can unlock 2 new skills." Oh, these abilities were very effective in the game, but I don't know how effective they will be now, Jen thought, wondering which one he should choose. Lan Shi, are there any monsters older than flies? Asked Jen, tossing the knife in his hand. Sir, what are you trying to do? He said anxiously. I didn't realize there was a bamboo forest here. What a beautiful view, Jen said, walking straight into the forest. Sir, the second-level sword boars here. Even 4th and 5th ranked warriors, don't mess with them. You've had your fun, and it's time to go home. Lan Shi was embarrassed to dissuade his master from his plans. Suddenly, Jen stopped abruptly. In the distance, he saw one of the sword-bearing boars running furiously toward them. To prevent the boar's attack, Jen jumped back sharply from the boar, and it simply slammed into the ground with its tusks. Sir, run away! Lan shouted bravely, defending his master. In response, he heard in an angry tone, Don't stand in my way. Get out of my way. Barely able to keep up with the young master's movements, Lan wondered how fast his friend was moving, having seen his movements. Using his new ability and surrounding the boar on 2 sides, Jen shouted, Double attack! Stab in the back followed immediately after, and the aggressive monster's life level rapidly decreased to the minimum level, then dropped to 0. Having lost all of its health, the poster's carcass fell to the ground with a loud crash. After defeating the enemy, Jen proudly walked toward his trophy. Well, that's it, said Jen, thinking. It seems that these 2 skills are beneficial here, he rejoiced, having defeated such a formidable opponent. He's definitely not a warrior, Lan Shi thought with a surprised look, after seeing everything that had happened. And you're dragging the carcass, Jen carelessly said, rubbing his knife. After hauling the carcass home, the housekeeper cooked the sword boar for dinner, and the family gathered around the table to enjoy it. First, it was shadow snakes, and now it's sword boar. I don't even know whether to praise you or punish you, said my father in confusion. Better tell me if you can lend me some star crystals or gold, said the son, chewing happily on the boar's meat. There's a competition tomorrow? I can bet on myself, right? He said to his father, smiling and not looking up from his meal. Standing at the gate, the 2 boys discussed their captain, Yan. The captain has been training like crazy lately, one said. Captain Yang is taking this too seriously. It's just a bet, the other replied. I'll win, and not just the argument, said Captain Yang, sweating from his training and breathing heavily. A 3rd-ranked warrior. The captain looked at the results of his hard training with his mouth open in surprise. You'll see this lowlife Zhou Zhang is no genius, Yan said, happy to have reached such a high rank, and his body was enveloped in a fiery aura of leveling up. And so, the day of the competition arrived. Many people gathered around with posters, cheers, and words of support for the competition participants. Oh, Commander Yang is so beautiful, the girls from Yang's cheerleading squad shouted. Commander Yang, we are rooting for you, shouted a teammate from his team. On the other side, locals supported Zhang. Little Joe, cheers, 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 go, his grandmother shouted. Little brother, you will definitely win, children in the crowd shouted. Mr. Zhou, you have good support, Commander Yan said smugly to Zhou Zhen, already imagining how he would win. Approaching his fans, he put his hand on the head of one of the children and asked, Kid, did you bet on your brother? No, I don't have any money, the child replied anxiously. Here, bet on me, Jen replied, placing a medium-sized white crystal in the boy's hands. Okay, the boy replied. Hey, how can you force a child to be tied up in a patina? Said Commander Yang to Jen in surprise. Calm down. He's only going to place a bet. How can that get him into anything? Asked Jen. You have a lot of confidence, Yan Baixun replied. Commander Yang, I wish you good luck, Jen Zhou said, extending his hand to him. You need it more, he replied insultingly. Both sides have agreed that the level of weapons does not matter. Only the value of the loot will determine the winner, the judge said into the microphone. If no one has any objections, let the hunt begin, the judge said, signaling the start of the competition between the participants. Zhou Zhen, you're finished, said Commander Yan smugly with a sinister smile, 100% sure of his victory. A rookie against a 3rd-ranked fighter. This will be a valuable lesson for you if you can come back alive, the judge thought as he evaluated the participants. Leader, should we send someone to protect the young master? Asked one of the guards, standing on the wall and watching the competition. No need, I can handle it myself, but in the future, he will have to rely on himself, Zhou Hongqiang said confidently. He picked up the phone and said, Objective, kill target number 2. The reward is a green crystal. Looking through the notebook with his personal files, he opened a page that told him everything about the target the mercenary was supposed to hunt. It all depends on the level of the green crystal. the mercenary said smugly, responding to what he had heard. First, I'll relax my muscles a bit, said Tang Lai, the fifth-ranked warrior who ordered the killing of Zhen. Suddenly, the sound of stomping feet came down the stairs. A girl ran into the basement to report something. Standing in front of the room's door, she said, "Master, it has already begun." "1 crystal for such a pittance? Not a very good deal. I'll take it for the last time," the secret identity said, sipping wine from her glass. "Once our plan is completed, I will get much more," said a person who was also involved in the case smugly. Zheng unfolded the map of the area and began to examine it. "The map the Su family gave me is really very detailed." The map marked the area and it read, "3rd-level shadow wolves here. They are dangerous. Be careful." "Then I'll catch the shadow wolf first," Zhen decided as he drove to the area by car and then walked to the exact spot. When he arrived, he saw a clearing with many wolves, all eating their prey. Pulling out his sword, Zhen abruptly stood before one of them, preparing for a duel to begin his hunt. After defeating the 5 monsters, the exhausted Zheng knelt down from fatigue, recuperating, and 5 carcasses of the defeated wolves lay around him. "It seems that 5 is my maximum at the moment," Zhen thought, breathing heavily and dripping with sweat after a hard fight. Opening the window of his characteristics, he spoke. "Level 16. My abilities should be slightly worse than a 3rd-ranked warrior." "Oh, it hurts so much," he thought as he pressed his hand to his body, feeling the excruciating pain of his battle wound. "I don't know if the medicine I got will help me," Zhen said, taking out a medicine vial. Its description read, "Minor healing potion, restores 120 health units in 6 seconds, 20 units per second." As he lifted the vial to his mouth, a strange smell made him think, "Why does this stuff smell a bit like disinfectant?" Sniffing it, he saw that his wound had not healed. "Didn't it work? Should I drink some of it or something?" Zheng wondered. Confused, Zheng could not bring himself to drink the potion, giving in to his most potent convictions. "This is a game, right? Should I try to drink it?" It took him a long time to overcome himself, but he finally drank the potion. He took small sips but overcame himself and swallowed everything he had put in his mouth to the last drop. After drinking the potion, it immediately began to work. The wound started to heal at the exact moment. Zheng could not believe it. It really worked. His body was enveloped in a jade aura, and he felt relief all over it. All his wounds instantly began to heal. "What? Is it really that fast?" Zhen could not believe that the magic potion had healed all his wounds in such a long time. "It's just an incredible effect," he said, still surprised at how effectively the potion worked in this world because he had never experienced it before. The hunt went off without a hitch. Meanwhile, everyone was doing their best somewhere on the edge of the forest. "Brother, did you bet on someone?" Yang Yu asked his friend. "Nothing like that. I worked hard to earn my money. I won't waste it like that," Zhou Lanbo replied. Suddenly, Guo Yue, a 3rd-ranked warrior, interrupted their dialogue. "Quiet, someone's coming," she said to create silence. Suddenly, a silhouette of a man appeared from the forest thicket. It was Tang Lai. He uttered a surprised cry. "Hey, humans?" Not expecting to meet anyone on his mission. "Stop right there, not a step forward," Guo Yue said, waving her sword. "Don't worry, I just got lost," Tang Lai replied. "By the way, have you seen this guy by any chance?" he asked the guards, taking a photo out of his pocket and holding out Zheng's picture. "This is Zhou Zhen, right? We saw him this morning," said Yang Yu. "You shut up right now," snapped Zhou Lanbo. Great." The old man smiled mysteriously when he heard the answer to his question. "If I had killed the wrong people," shouted Tang Lai, rushing forward, thus quickly passing by the guards. "You run away," Zhou Lanbao shouted, rushing forward at Tang Lai, protecting his comrade and leaving him behind. Jumping up on the move, he tried to hit Tang Lai in flight, but his punch missed its intended target. "My conscience would have tormented me," the old man said, easily dodging the attack and heading toward Yang Yue. "But why?" he asked in a frightened tone. "Because I don't like to leave any witnesses or traces behind," said Tan Lai, about to slap Yang Yue, who was already trembling with fear. "When did I catch a cold?" Zheng wondered as he sat on a branch of a tall tree, tracking down his next target. "I think it's the boss," he said happily when he saw a large predatory animal come into view. "But my equipment is broken. I can't take on the boss," he said in disappointment, looking at the weapon he had recently used to fight the shadow wolves. "It's already 1 o'clock in the afternoon. If I don't find some valuable prey, I'll really be considered a nobody," he thought, looking at his watch to see how much time he had left. As he looked around, he suddenly saw someone moving in his direction. "What is it? A man?" he wondered. His life scale is red. Has he come to kill me? Zheng wondered, watching him from a safe distance. He's not here, did I imagine it? Tang Lai reacted in confusion. He did not see his target, where he had recently noticed him, slowly walking on. This person is obviously powerful, thought Zhen in a frightened voice, hiding behind a tree from the minds thinking behind the heads. Cold sweat broke out on his body. Obviously this person came for me. Someone wished for my death, Zhao Zhen began to think in his hiding place, holding a knife in his hand. But the one who attacks first wins, he thought with a burst of courage, coming up with a plan to neutralize the most dangerous opponent. By throwing a coin into the air to a considerable height, he tried to distract Tan Lai's attention. He succeeded. The bounty hunter was confused when he saw something hovering above him. You... The hunter reacted sharply to the unexpected attack, deflecting a sword strike right next to his head. But even though he was able to defend himself from critical damage, Zhang still managed to wound him slightly, leaving a small cut on his left cheek. And Tai Lai could only wonder at his speed. I can't hold out much longer, it's time for my trump card, Zhen thought through gritted teeth as he faced off against the fifth-ranked opponent. Double attack! Zhen used his unique, secret skill to defeat his opponent, drawing his blade. Damn it, thought Tang Lai as he repelled Zhen's attack, which he had barely been able to stop because he had not anticipated such resistance from such a seemingly simple opponent. Zhen threw the bounty hunter a considerable distance with his punch, confusing him and causing him damage. It can't be. How did he break through my defense? It's impossible, Tan Lai said in a surprised, anxious voice, not understanding how it could be possible because his block was perfect. Hey, he only lost a drop of blood, Zheng asked in surprise because this was his best punch, which no one knew about and could resist. How is this possible? Tang Lai frantically began to think about his plan of action. He could no longer use the previous plan because the enemy was much stronger than expected. A rookie? A lowlife? Bastards from the intelligence department. Are they sure they were talking about him? I almost died just now, Tang Lai thought, boiling with anger after the repelled attack. Did Yang Baishun send you to kill me? Asked Zhen, trying to get in touch with his opponent to find out who ordered him. You're much stronger than I expected, but a man who is about to die doesn't need to know that much, Tang Lai said as he applied a martial skill to his sword. With a single swing of his sword, the bounty hunter only cut through a thick tree, which would require considerable strength to repeat. Still, he could not reach Zhen, who dodged the attack. Having dodged the blow, the boy jumped back, thinking he could not win this fight, so he needed to at least hide from it now. You hide well, but you can't escape, said Tan Lai, tracking his opponent's whereabouts and looking around him. Peeking out from his hiding place, Zheng decided to scan his opponent's weaknesses to see where he could attack most effectively. After scanning, the results showed that the most effective places to target were the knees, hands, heart, and directly to the head. Without hesitation, Zhen decided to try his luck and hit the head from the enemy's blind spot, but it was in vain. The enemy repelled this attack from the back. With a slight swing of his sword, the bounty hunter easily deflected the attack, thus pinpointing the direction of the gunfire and locating Zheng. Obviously, you have no idea how high the physical fitness level of a 6th-ranked martial artist is. I can dodge this bullet with my eyes closed, said Tang Lai. Seeing how different his opponent was, Zhen didn't want to take any chances and decided to call in the helper. Jumping out of his hiding place, he started shooting in Tang Lai's direction to distract and prevent him from getting close to him quickly. When he notices Zheng, the hunter immediately decides to go for the kill. He is a swordsman, and fighting at a distance makes no sense to him, so he needs to get as close to his opponent as possible. When Zheng finished shooting, he immediately decided to run away. Still, Tang rushed after him, shouting, "You can't run from me." Running away from the Avenger, Zheng reached the cliff's edge and immediately jumped off it without thinking for a minute. It seems he had a plan. As he reached the cliff, Tang Lai shouted, "Goodbye!" and rushed off the cliff right after him. Again, he used his deadly technique. He took up the sword with both hands to make the force of the blow even stronger. When Zheng landed, he was surrounded by 3rd-level shadow wolves, but he didn't seem bothered by this. Everything was going according to his plan. Double attack! Zheng used his most potent technique, slashing the monsters one after the other. Stab in the back! He continued to slash his enemies, sparing no effort to break through the crowd of angry monsters to the exit of this hellish circle. Are you crazy? We're both going to die here! Tang Lai shouted at him, marveling at his crazy actions as he stood before the crowd of angry shadow wolves and looked death in the eye. Let's see who dies first! The bounty hunter shouted calmly, swinging his devastating sword in different directions, crushing his enemies. Suddenly, all this noise reached the pack leader, who was lying quietly away from everyone else. Their actions disturbed his majestic sleep, and he could not accept it. Rising and bristling with anger at being awakened, the majestic pack leader walked toward Zheng and Tanlai. As he approached the murderers, they immediately cleared the way, so that he could get closer to the impudent strangers to teach them a deadly lesson about not waking him. Noticing that the pack leader was getting closer and closer to them, Zheng noticed a small gap between the wolves through which he could try to break through. "You've cut off your own escape route, but it won't be difficult for me to get out of here," said Tang Lai, realizing what Zhen was trying to do. "Is that so?" said Zheng with a crazy smile, holding a grenade in each hand to open the way for him to retreat. "Shall I make it harder for you?" the boy said, detonating the grenades. They were not live ammunition, but smoke grenades that would allow him to retreat. "Zhou Jing, you!" the bounty hunter said, waving his arms and coughing, trying to eliminate the smoke blocking his entire view. Tan was surprised to see that Zheng was gone when the smoke cleared a little. He had disappeared somewhere. Suddenly, Tan felt a threat from behind the smoke, and he jumped back. At the same second, the wolf leader's giant paw replaced him, leaving a small crater. The smoke dissipated a little. Only Tang Lai remained on the battlefield, along with the gray wolves and their leader, whom he had to deal with or escape from. Meanwhile, Zheng Zhou was sitting in a tree nearby, drinking a healing potion to restore his strength after a hard battle, watching what was happening below. "Here, have fun," Zhen whispered as he watched the wolves and Tan fight each other while drinking the potion. "Get out of here!" the hunter shouted, swinging his sword in different directions, killing the wolves one by one for a long time. Finally, silence. "It seems he's already dead," Zheng said when the sounds of the brutal slaughter between Tan and the pack of gray wolves finally subsided. The scene on the battlefield looked something like this. The corpses of wolves lay everywhere around the bounty hunter, his sword sticking out of the neck of the leader, who had his teeth in Tan's shoulder. As Zheng approached the leader and Lai, he gasped, "Really, how could one person slaughter the entire pack? Such skills of a fifth-ranked warrior!" "I'm not to be trifled with," the boy said as he approached Tan's dead body to search it. "He's rich!" Zheng shouted, opening a pouch attached to his belt and examining the many crystals Tan had in his wallet. While sorting through the crystals, the boy came across a strange cylindrical object. "What is this?" he said. "Eh? What, is he still alive?" Zheng thought, hearing the leader's breathing as he looked at everything in Tan's bag. "Now, I'll put an end to your suffering," the boy said, picking up the blade and slowly approaching the pack leader to finish him off. Meanwhile, everyone in the square was waiting for the competition to end. "Why aren't they coming back?" one asked. "Who did you bet on?" another answered. "Of course on Commander Yan. The winnings may not be big, but they are guaranteed," one of the talking guys calmly replied. "Mr. Yan, your son's chances of winning are almost 90%, right? Congratulations in advance," someone from the crowd addressed Bayun's father. "Don't rush. They haven't come back yet. Don't rush. Don't rush." "Sir, What if something went wrong?" Su Jinwen said. "Don't worry, he'll be fine," Lan Shi reassured her. "Commander Yang has returned victorious. Just look at the number of games he has in his car," the crowd shouted joyfully, convinced of Bayun's victory. "Are you injured?" Yan asked his son. "The main thing is to defeat a nobody. The rest doesn't really matter," Bayun replied smugly. "Take him out. Let him rest," Yan, the elder, said to the girl beside him. "Yes," she replied. "The results will be announced when Zhou Zheng returns," Yang Sr. said, looking at Zhou Hongqiang. Suddenly, the crowd shouted again, "Mr. Zhou Zheng has returned!" They all greeted him with loud shouts and rejoiced that they would finally know the fight's results soon. An enraged Zhou Zheng was driving the car and muttering angrily, "What a bastard to choose my car," without holding back his emotions. "You came back pretty fast. I thought I'd have time to rest," young Baishun said to Zheng in a cheeky tone. "You'll have plenty of time to rest," Zheng replied. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have a suggestion. Let's not count the booty of both participants together, but do it separately, don't you think?" suggested Bayun. "Does this kid want to embarrass little Zheng?" sighed Zhou Hongqiang sadly, watching from the crowd. "I don't care. We'll do it if you want," Zheng replied smugly, shrugging his shoulders and smiling at Bayun. "Okay then, let's count my booty and then Mr. Zhou Zheng's booty," suggested Yang. "Let's see how this trash reacts," he thought arrogantly. The host approached Mr. Yang's car with a microphone and said, "And now, we will estimate the value of Captain Yan's game." At once, Nalup held his breath, and at the exact moment, he was stunned by what he saw. The people watching opened their mouths in amazement. Yang walked over to Jung and put his hand on his shoulder. Mr. Jo Jung, what do you think? Who will win this competition? Meanwhile, as they evaluated the spoils, everyone came closer to look at the trophy in Mr. Yang's car. Isn't it just me? Said one of Mr. Yang's teammates. Commander Yang caught it himself, exclaimed his comrade next to him in amazement. A level 2 sword bore worth. The judge announced into the microphone, getting as close to the prey as he could to get a better look at it. We check if any star crystals are inside it and then calculate the final value. After all, this is almost a level 3 game, not some ordinary prey, Bayun said. This is... Previously, the judges were confused because it would take a long time to find out if there were crystals inside, as if it was a mandatory point in the rules. Nachadi, count as fast as you can. I still need to go home and take a bath, Jen said indifferently, waiting for his earring. Yes, there is something. It's a medium white crystal. Together with this crystal, the value of the sword bore is equal to the highest grade white crystal, the judges said. Commander Yang is the best, came a cheer from the audience. Not bad. You have the luck on your side, Zheng said. Fortune? Only weaklings believe in such things, Bayun replied sarcastically. I can win without it. Perhaps I should share half of the crystal's value with you. Yang continued to be sarcastic to Zheng. Wow, thank you very much, Commander Yang, Zhen shouted happily with a smile that stretched across his face. You miserable little shit, you only got up because of your gang, Bayun shouted at him angrily, boiling with rage. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't worry. The sword bore is just an appetizer. We haven't even gotten to the main course yet, Yang shouted, with his hands raised proudly. This is a third-level forest spider, the judge shouted in horror as he went to examine the prey still in the trunk of the car. Ah! The audience screamed in fright. Don't worry, he's dead, someone shouted back, reassuring the frightened crowd. Even fourth-ranked warriors don't dare to approach forest spiders, said Yang Sr. It's just that Commander Yang is all about you, one of Bayun's comrades said. A level 3 forest spider? Cost 3 top-grade white crystals, the appraiser said. Wah! Shouted the cheering crowd. Commander Yang, I want to have a baby with you, one of the cheerleaders said from the crowd. Commander Yang! Commander Yang! The cheering crowd was in full swing. He won! He definitely won! The crowd was getting louder and louder. Zhou Zheng, there is a huge gap between us. A nobody can't compare to a genius, Yang Baisheng shouted at Zheng, savoring the triumph of victory. So you consider yourself a nobody? Zheng replied in a calm, completely indifferent voice, as he was already taking a warm bath at home. Nobodies do nothing but talk, Zheng continued, getting to his feet and answering indifferently. Okay, then let's see who's a nobody, Bayun exclaimed, grabbing the cloak covering Zheng's booty. I didn't have much time and didn't catch anything valuable, Zheng said disappointedly. But everyone suddenly fell silent when they saw what Zheng had caught. Taking off the cloak, they saw that the dead leader of the Shadow Wolves was lying on Zheng's car, and Zheng was standing in front of him, the one who had killed him. With his mouth gaping at the top of his lungs, Yang gasped. Only one Shadow Wolf, realizing he could not win. A 4th-level Shadow Wolf King? Said Dad in amazement. Young Master was able to kill a 4th-level beast? Replied Su Junwen in awe. It's a level 4 Shadow Wolf King, worth 1 lowest-grade blue crystal, the judge said, estimating the value of the prey. And how many high-class white crystals can you exchange for such a blue crystal? Came Yang's teammate. You idiot, it's equivalent to 100 top-grade white crystals, he was told. It's crazy, isn't it? Yay! Brother Zhou Zheng won! He won! Shouted a boy in the crowd, sitting on his grandfather's shoulders to get a better view. Mr. Zhou Zhen, the crowd shouted. Defeat! Absolute defeat! Shouted a grandmother in the crowd, rejoicing in Zheng's victory. It can't be. He was definitely cheating. Even 5th-ranked warriors don't dare to challenge the Shadow Wolf King. How could he kill him? Bai Shun was accusing Zheng. For being able to kill that wolf, I need to thank you. Zheng pointed at young Bai Shun with a smile. Me? Commander Yang said in surprise. He was very confused, not understanding what the other man meant. To deal with a lowlife like me, you, Commander Yang, called for a 5th-ranked warrior, didn't you? Zheng said, approaching him and flexing his fists to punch him. What are you talking about? It's obvious that you cheated yourself, and now you want to set me up. Bayun replied in a confused and frightened tone, not understanding what he meant. Son, shut your mouth, Yang Sr. snapped at him. The young master is truly incomparable. When we return, I will teach this naughty son a lesson, who cannot admit defeat, Bayun's father continued. That fat man with squinty eyes doesn't look like a good person, thought Yang when he saw him. Principal Yang says that with full responsibility. It's just an argument between two boys. You shouldn't be so harsh on them, Zhou Hongqiang said as he approached them. Zheng is just lucky. He is no match for your son, said Hongqiang. Haha. Luck is also important, Principal Yang replied. When he returned home, he angrily pushed the maid against the wall and began to hurl accusations at her. Why is Zhou Zheng still alive? What happened to the Shadow Wolf King? He began to ask her, approaching her in a fit of rage. It seems that those assassins are just a bunch of lowlifes. I don't want to wait any longer. I'll use the other way, said Director Yang, burning with anger at his failure. At dinner, Zheng's dad and his friends sat around the festive table, drinking alcohol. Bottoms up, one of them exclaimed. Heh heh, it's bitter. Zheng coughed as he tasted the beer, but his smiling father just tapped him on the shoulder. I'd rather have some meat, Zheng said, taking a shin in each hand and holding it over both cheeks. Obviously, it doesn't matter what world I'm in, but alcohol is not my thing, he thought as he chewed on the meat. Congratulations on your victory, his father exclaimed, raising his glass of drink to congratulate his son on the end of the competition and his victory. Dad, Yang Baishun, and that young Chuan. Zhen was about to say something when he wiped his mouth with his food, but suddenly stopped. Dad, Yang Baishun, and that Yang Chuan, Zhen was about to say, but suddenly stopped. Wait, I don't know who was behind that killer yet. Any rash word on this topic could cause a lot of problems, he thought, deciding not to continue. Don't take what Yang Baishun said to heart as if you were being sly. This boy has talent but a terrible temper, and your harsh uncle is raising him, his father said to him. Okay, I'll deal with this alone for now, Zheng decided. This thing? Is it a bomb? The boy wondered, looking at the strange thing he had found in Tang Lai's room when he examined his bag of crystals. I think I've been thinking of all sorts of things, Zheng said, dropping the thing and hiding when it began to smoke. Maybe it's some kind of communication device, Zheng said, picking it up and examining it again. Suddenly, the door to his room opened, and Su Junwen walked in, dragging a sack behind her. You were sent crystals for your bet in the competition, she said. I have to help you. Where do I put it? She asked her master, holding the sack in her hands shyly. No, just put it down, Zheng Zhao answered in an embarrassed tone as he watched her. Abruptly approaching her, he tried to grab the heavy bag from her hands, but only touched his hands on top of hers, creating an awkward situation. After snatching the bag from her hands, Zheng said, I will carry this heavy sack by myself. But, as a domestic worker, I should... She hesitantly objected to Zheng. To me, you're just a girl. You shouldn't limit yourself to your position as a housemaid, Zheng said, smiling at her, trying to ease the tension. But suddenly, their pleasantries were interrupted by his father, who appeared out of nowhere in his room. He asked, Xiao Zheng, are you busy? No, not busy, he replied, with some disappointment in his voice. Su Kunwen had already left the room when she saw Zheng's father in the room. Today, you won the competition, and many people stopped doubting you. So it's time to teach you how to run the administrative affairs of our campus, Zhou Hongqiang said in a serious tone. I don't want to become a leader, but I would like to ask you for something, Zheng said in a disappointed, lowered voice. What is it? His father asked. Can you help me upgrade my equipment with these crystals? Zheng Zhou asked with a sly smile. That lowlife Zheng Zhou really cheated? Yang Baishao shouted in anger while inside his home. Judging from the wounds on the Shadow Wolf King, someone else killed him, said one of the Yang family's close associates. Father, did you hear that? That bastard! Yang Baishun shouted angrily to his father after hearing that his suspicions were correct. I know, forget about it, Yang's father said calmly to his son, holding his cigarette. Father, it's my reputation! That bastard! Baiyun started up again, slamming his hands on the table and standing before his father. I said, I know, the father said, raising his voice to his son. Go away, he continued, looking at his son sternly, who could not calm down. Angry, Baishun turned and headed for the room's exit, furiously repeating only one name. Zhou Jin! Do not think that because your father is the head, you are allowed to do whatever you want, Baiyun continued to mutter under his breath as he walked down the hall. After upgrading his weapon, Zhen went hunting again, but this time for level 20 zombies. Finally, the 20th level. Zhou Zhen rejoiced as he killed the last monster to reach the new level. With the cool gear, my upgrade speed is really different, he said, feeling a massive change after upgrading his equipment. After reaching the new level, Zhenyu unlocked a unique skill called Attack Jump. Jumping directly at the target, launching a triple attack, each strike dealing 200 points of damage. Suddenly, the silence was interrupted by someone's loud growl. Zhengzhou saw a giant zombie not far from him heading towards the city. Wow, that's a giant, Zhen thought as he watched it from afar with binoculars, studying its movements and behavior. This will be a good test, Zhen said with fervor in his eyes, planning to attack and kill this giant. The zombie was heading for a building with a man standing on it and a radio receiver next to it, which most likely attracted the giant. The giant zombie continued to walk toward that building, screaming loudly. Its eyes glowed red, and its scream became even louder. The last team of the mission, Regeneration, a man on the roof of the building with the wave receiver radioed, scanning for weaknesses. Applying this skill, Zhengzhou shot at the giant, hoping to inflict critical damage on him, but after being hit in the head with an arrow, it seemed that the monster was not harmed at all because it simply took the arrow out of its head, as if nothing had happened, just shrunk even more. He took out the arrow and broke it in half in his hand, becoming even more enraged. His eyes glowed the color of blood, and his body was enveloped in a sinister aura of the same color as if signaling danger. Huh? This is truly an elite creature. Even a shot to the head couldn't kill it, Zhen thought, surprised that his attack didn't work. As Zhen stood on the roof of the building, thinking about his next move, the giant he had shot at noticed him. It looks like I've annoyed the big guy, Zhen said in disappointment when he saw him looking in his direction and approaching him. So, without wasting time, Zhen decided to attack it with a new technique called jump attack, jumping off the building in the monster's direction. After landing on it and slightly injuring the giant's neck, he jumped up again to use his other skill. Zhen used backstab after jumping attack. With this combo, he took off half of the giant's available health points. Huh? What a strange obstacle. What's going on? The man at the receiver tried to determine the cause. The louder the noise gets, the more interesting it is to find out, he said, looking for the source of the noise somewhere in the distance. After dealing with the giant zombie, Zheng searched its body for treasures. Wow, a blue crystal, he exclaimed happily when he found such a valuable item. Who's here? Stop! A guy at the checkpoint suddenly stopped Zheng, raising his hand to signal where to stop. Mr. Zhou Zheng, is that you? The guy asked, embarrassed, realizing what he had done. Did something happen? There were no guards here in the morning, Zheng asked, trying to find information. Well, I don't know, but according to rumors, the zombies near the city have become very active, the guard told Zheng. Zombies? Interesting. No wonder I thought there were a lot of them today. It looks like it, Zheng said thoughtfully, standing in a pensive pose and holding his chin with his hand. When he arrived home, he immediately went to his father's office to find out some details about what was happening. When he entered, he immediately called out to his father. When he entered the office, he saw his father waiting for his son to return home. Xiao Zheng, you're just in time. Come in and listen. When Zheng looked around, his father was not alone in the office. Hello, everyone, he greeted. Go ahead, Zhou Hongqiang told the speaker. Chairman, we have already established that there is a huge zombie in the old part of the city. Right now, it is heading towards our settlement. We estimate that it will reach the city tomorrow at noon. And he will not come alone, the speaker said. Of course, we can try to hold the line, but I think, said the burly man, sipping his cigar and making possible plans. We have to take the initiative and destroy him, he said, putting his cigarette in the ashtray. I agree with you. After all, there's only 6 months left before the harvest. As the head of the department, I don't want to see hunger in our place in the second half of the year, said Director Yang. Shu, has the news of today's mobilization already leaked to the people? Asked Zhou Hongqiang. Don't worry. Even if someone guessed, they wouldn't dare tell anyone, Shu Li replied. Tomorrow morning he will gather the troops and we will go outside the city. Yang and Shu will defend the rear. Chairman Hongqiang told everyone in a commanding tone. In my absence, all power will be in the hands of Zhou Zheng, he added, tapping his son's shoulder. Surprised, Zheng pointed at himself and asked again, Me? Hoping his father was joking. Xiao Zhen, I will be gone for a while and you need to gain experience in such matters, his father told his son. Dad, but this crowd of zombies, it's hazardous. Think it over again, his son objected. Silly boy, I am a 5th-ranked warrior. Besides, we're just distracting them, the father reassured his son, assuring him that the mission was not as dangerous as it seemed. Anyway, you have to promise me that you will come back home safe and sound, the son said to his father, agreeing to his proposal and receiving a positive response. Our Xiao Zheng has grown up, the father said to the framed photo of his wife that he was holding in his hand. After this conversation, the night fell, and in the morning, Zheng Hongqiang and his squad set off on their planned mission. It had been several days since the leader had left his home. Standing on the wall with his uncle Shu Li, he patrolled the area. Suddenly, one of the soldiers came running to them, saying that the patrol had returned. "Mr. Zhou, leader, we've got trouble," said one of the wounded who had returned. "Lan Shi, do you think my father is really in trouble?" asked Zhen. "Yeah, I don't know either," Lan Shi replied. "But I know the man who was led away wounded, and he is actually from the patrol," Zhen said quietly, sensing something was wrong. "Why are there no signs of a zombie battle here?" the interim leader wondered as he drove to his father's location. "Hey, where are we going?" Zhen asked the driver menacingly, trying to figure out what was happening. "Be patient, Mr. Zhou, we'll be there soon," the driver replied. His life bar has turned red. "Shit, it's a trap," Zhen realized, telling Lan Shi. "There you are, we've been waiting for you," said one of the mercenaries, throwing his cigarette on the ground. "Well, let's get started," said another, holding a sword. "Mr. Zhou, this is your stop," the driver said, turning back with a sarcastic smile. "What do you mean?" Lan Shi asked the driver menacingly, rising to his feet and piercing the traitor with a stern look. "You know what I mean," came the reply from the other side. Yang Baixun, who had planned the whole situation, approached the car. Yang Baixun, the commander about to take revenge, gestured with his hand to silence everyone. "Yang Baixun, you dare to betray the chairman?" Lan Shi shouted, standing in front of Zheng to protect him. "Dog!" Yang Baixun kicked Lan Shi's body and threw him back. "Who gave you the right to open your mouth?" "Is the crowd of zombies you're doing?" Zheng asked, looking at Yang with a grudging glance. "I don't have to answer you. You're going to die soon anyway," Baiyun said, smiling slyly and lighting a cigar. "Your father is very clever, and we had to work hard to lure him out of the city," he continued, snapping the lighter shut. "Lure him out? What are you up to?" asked Zhen sternly, drilling into the traitors. "What do you think? He's been in office too long. Can't we replace him with someone else?" Yang answered, feeling superior, blowing smoke into Zhen's face. "The weakest of all these people is a second-ranked warrior," Lan Shi told his commander to warn him of the possible threat. "Sir, I'll hold them off, and you run away," Lan Shi said selflessly, trying to save his master. "Hey, do you think we're deaf?" one of the mercenaries behind them shouted. "You're absolutely right," said Zhen, who had already decided how he would act in this situation and had assessed all his strength and that of his opponents. "Everyone will stay here," he continued, abruptly moving to the back of one of the mercenaries who had just threatened them and putting a dagger to his throat. "No one will escape," he finished, slitting the throat of one of the traitors and moving abruptly to the rest of the mercenaries. "How dare you!" one of the mercenaries shouted as he saw his comrade's dead body fall to the ground. "Destroy him!" shouted another from the crowd. Standing aside, the bewildered Yang Baixun could only watch the scene before him. He hadn't expected things to turn out this way and that there would be resistance. "You're not an intern? But how?" one of the mercenaries shouted and thoughtlessly attacked Zheng, hoping to finish him off. "Who says a trainee can't kill a man?" Zheng said without hesitation, slitting the throat of another attacker. "Nonsense! He must have injected himself with some kind of drug. Detain him! As soon as the elixir wears off, he will become weak," Yang bellowed, firing at Zheng with the guns he held in both hands. Abruptly closing in on Yang, Zheng threw him to the ground. "No way! I'm a third-ranked warrior," Baiyun said in fright. "Is rank all that matters?" "You're in a terrible position, Commander Yang," Zheng said with a sinister smile. When Zheng put the knife to Yang's throat, he immediately screamed that he could not finish him off now. The whole city is now under his father's control. If he kills him now, Zheng's father will not escape death either. "We'll see about that," Zhen said aggressively. "Where did you take my father?" he asked, holding the knife in front of him so that his hand wouldn't accidentally jerk. He's in the eastern part," Yang said, frightened, pointing toward the eastern horizon. "In the eastern part, you mean?" Zheng said, standing up and looking toward the east. At that moment, Yang was already standing up and took a knife out of his inner pocket to kill Zheng. Noticing that Zheng had dropped his guard, Yang Baixun tried to attack him, but his attempt was in vain. As soon as he tried to attack, Zheng had already used his jump attack ability. The defeated Yang Baixun, lying unconscious on the ground, could only mutter softly, "I'm downstairs. I'll wait for you." When Lan Shi regained consciousness, he asked, "Sir, what are we going to do with all of them?" As he looked at all the defeated soldiers lying on the ground, "Of course we'll kill these traitors and save my father," Lan Zhen replied sharply as he headed east. There were a lot of zombies, but they all moved strangely. Instead, even strangely, their behavior was not what it usually was. Zhou Hongqiang decided to report it to the others. "Lao Yu, the movements of these zombies seem to be—" He turned to his friend and wanted to say. Still, he was not allowed to finish because something unexpected awaited him. As he spoke the information he had just learned, the leader felt a strange sense of bloodlust behind him. Sensing the danger behind him, Hongqiang jumped out of the way, thus avoiding the brunt of the impact, but Lao Yu's attack still wound him. "He's tougher than I imagined. You attack with one of these, and the victim won't even realize it," the traitor said as he wiped his sword clean of blood. "You betrayed me?" Hongqiang asked him. "Oh, it doesn't sound like it," he said, holding his sword ready. "But I'm not the only one who betrayed you," he said, smiling ominously and holding up a hand. "Enough talk," came a voice from the forest, and the rest of the traitors came out, also about to finish him off. "So it's all you two hypocrites?" Zhou Hongqiang asked them, not understanding why this happened and why they decided to betray him. "What about me?" came a voice behind him. Director Yang was most likely the root cause of this plot against the leader. "Goodbye, Zhou," Director Yang shouted as he threw his shuriken at the leader, trying to finish him off on the spot. Zhou tried to dodge the weapons thrown at him, but in midair, he was immediately shot at with rifles. While in the air, he was an easy target for the shooters, but thanks to his skills, he could deflect all the bullets by quickly rotating the sword in his hand as if to make it a shield. As he repelled the attack in front of him, his defense behind him weakened. At that exact moment, Director Yang was already behind him. "You can't hide from us," he said, stabbing Zhou Hongqiang in the back, thereby attaching the bomb's detonator to him. When it exploded, the blast wave threw the opponents in different directions, causing considerable damage to the leader. Immediately afterward, before the chairman could recover, Yang fired several shurikens at him, one of which hit Hongqiang's left shoulder. "Why? I trusted you more than anyone else," the leader said furiously, ready to kill each traitor with his own hands without hesitation. "Trusted? In our world, trust is worthless," Director Yang replied sarcastically, standing before him and all who had decided to betray the leader with him. "People who have no power will be losers all their lives," Yang said with a sinister smile and arrogance. "And you think I'm going to die like this?" the leader replied, smiling hysterically, with no intention of giving up, but only of fighting to the end. "Try to kill me," Zhou Hongqiang said with determination and pride, using his devastating technique. "You! Hey, come over here quickly!" Director Yang called out to his accomplices, knowing what was about to happen and to protect him. Zheng Hongqiang's eyes turned blue, and a devilishly powerful aura appeared around him. Everyone in the vicinity could hear it, and it sent shivers down his spine. "Even though he's my worthless dad, I won't let him die," Zheng Zhou thought as he hurried to help. "Master, the leader's defense headquarters is probably right down the road," Lan Shi told his friend, noticing the fortifications. "Empty health bars, the whole patrol must have died," Zheng thought, drawing conclusions from what he saw with his own eyes. Just before the defense point, he was stopped by one of the patrolmen armed with a rifle. He stretched out his hand in front of him, gesturing for him to stop in front of him. "Ah, Mr. Zhou, the chairman is now trying to drive away the zombies. Shall I take you to him?" the guard asked, trying not to give himself away. "No need, I'll take you somewhere else first," said the fierce Zheng, who had already realized he was a traitor along the red line of the patrolman's health indicator. "A traitor can only go so far," said the Zhen, quickly rushing past him behind the guard. "Go to hell," he continued, slitting the throat of another of the traitors who decided to get rid of him. "If I die, I'll definitely take you all with me," Zheng Hongqiang said as he stood on the defensive, waiting for the enemy's next attack to try to counterattack. "You're almost out of breath and you're still so stubborn," Lao Yu told him, smiling ominously, expecting the fight to end soon. "What are you talking about?" shouted the wounded Director Yang, wanting the fight to end as soon as possible to heal his wounds. "It's time to finish," he shouted, throwing his shuriken in Zhou Hongyan's direction to finally end the fight. The leader defended himself with his last strength, defending himself with his sword and jumping back a bit to avoid another attack. However, the meerkat's attack reached him, hitting his right hand, specifically his palm, making it impossible for him to hold the sword. When the traitors saw this, they realized this was their chance. It had finally come, so they could not delay. They had to act here and now. Die! The fat man shouted loudly and ran toward them, picking up a dagger that was hidden in his coat for such occasions. Seeing Director Yang running to the attack, Lao Yu did not sit still and joined him, forming a joint attack. But suddenly the fat man, screaming in pain, abruptly jumped away from his opponent. Noticing a hole in his stomach, he realized what had happened. Yu Jianjui, I know what you just thought. If I die, all the grain storage in the city will be burned, and you will get nothing, he shouted aggressively to his accomplice. Then try not to die, Lao Yu said with a sinister smile and a rough voice. Your time is up, Joe. Lao Yu tried to deliver the final blow with his sword, swinging it with all his might. When his sword had almost reached the target, the attack was suddenly repelled by someone's shot, which greatly surprised the traitor. Looking in the direction from which the shot was fired, everyone immediately realized what had happened. However, their surprise was beyond belief because no one had expected it. Whose time is up there? Zheng said in a low voice to the traitors, preparing for battle, drilling his gaze menacingly into the memory. This power, you lowlife, how could you deflect my sword? Lao Yu shouted in concern, looking at the boy in confusion. My son is a lowlife? I don't see any more lowlifes here except you, the leader said joyfully, seeing reinforcements on the horizon. Zheng, help me grab Yang Chuan. I'll deal with these two lowlifes and help you, said the father to his son standing next to him. Don't worry, Zheng said, smiling happily, looking forward to the exciting battle that was about to take place. Drink this, Zhen said, handing his father a vial of the healing potion he used frequently. I've just played with your son, and now it's your turn, said Zheng angrily, slowly advancing and closing the distance between him and Director Yang. What did you do to Bai Shun? He asked in confusion, holding a shuriken in his hand as if preparing to run away at any second. What do you think? You two have done so much wrong, and you still have the nerve to ask? The boy replied, continuing to close the distance. Realizing that his surgeons were only effective at a distance, Director Yang decided to take advantage of his distance advantage. At the same time, he still had the chance, throwing them at Zheng and yelling, Die! You hit from a distance? What a weakling you are, Zheng said, deftly dodging all the knives fired at him. When he got close enough, Zheng used one of his skills to finish off the traitor. It was the double attack. It was impossible to block, especially in Yang's position, because he had lost his arm in the battle with Hong Qiang. He could block the attack from above, but the attack on the body was transparent and caused much damage. After Zheng completed the attack, Director Yang could close the distance between himself and his opponent a bit, and he had a free second to call for help from one of his accomplices, He Yanqing. After the call for help, He Yanqing immediately joined the fight, drew his sword and stabbed Zhen, but it seemed so only to him. His attack missed its target. His speed was too slow and Zhen could dodge it easily. Immediately after Zheng dodged, he launched a serious counterattack that took half his opponent's health points. When He Yanqing regained his senses, he swung his sword to try to wound the boy, but it only raised a column of dust around him. He was confused because he had lost sight of his opponent. Farewell, traitor, came from behind He Yanqing. Zheng had already swung his blade, holding it with both hands, and was ready to deliver a crushing, decisive blow to the enemy. Brother, what's really going on? Why are you forcing us to go inside? Asked the old man, who was being evacuated to a safer area. They say a large crowd of Zomi is coming. It will be safer if you stay in the city for these 2 days. Don't worry, everything will be fine, the soldier told him. Gather around while the chairman is sacrificing his own life outside. We have to protect our homeland, said Shu Li's uncle, commanding evacuation. I hope old man Zhou is okay, Shu Li thought as he continued to do his job. Meanwhile, in the Zheng's house was their domestic worker, Su Junwen, who was as worried about her owners as anyone else, and was waiting for them to return, looking out the window. Clutching something tightly in her hand, she kept hoping that Mr. Zheng Zhou and Mr. Zhou Hongqiang would definitely return, which could happen at any moment. In her mouth was the key to the helicopter the leader had once given her in case something dangerous happened. It was an emergency retreat plan. Junwen, you've cared for little Zheng for so many years, like a little brother. I've long considered you my daughter, Hongqiang said as he looked at the photo. Su reminisced. If our city doesn't survive this time, I'll pour baby Zheng on you, the leader said, handing her the helicopter key. But don't worry, this is not my dying wish, he said, reassuring Junwen that he would not die on this mission. In the end, he said quietly, smiling gently, a reassuring fatherly smile. In the end, he repeated again, sighing heavily on the battlefield, remembering his words and his promise to Su. I'm not ready to die yet! He shouted loudly to give himself the courage to continue fighting and keep his promise to Sue. His comrades in arms were being defeated, so Lai Yu was quickly distracted to check on He Young-king. But at the exact moment, as soon as he let his guard down, Zhou Hongqiang was already in front of him, and he was determined. "No, no!" he shouted, realizing what was about to happen because of his little mistake and a slight lapse in vigilance. Jumping up, the leader grabbed his sword with both hands and was ready to deliver the decisive blow to his opponent. He drove the sword into his chest, cutting his opponent almost in half. The battle's results were noticeable. Lao Yu was defeated. His dead body was thrown back several meters by the force of the last attack, and the leader only watched the demise of the traitor whom he had long considered his loyal comrade. "Zhou," he finally said, reaching out to his former comrade and taking his last breaths. "Do you want revenge? Then go to hell and wait for me there." Hongqiang replied in a rude tone, sending him off with a stern look on his last journey. Lao Yu's body fell dead on the cold ground. This was the end of him and the end of his atrocities. Noticing that his father was done with his rival, Zheng said, "The appetizers are over. It's time for the main course." "You can't kill me. If I die, all the other residents of the captured city will be buried with me," Yang exclaimed, writhing in pain, trying to prevent death. "I had heard rumors about Yu Jianjui's treachery, but I didn't think you were involved in it either," the leader said menacingly, approaching the last traitor. "What's the point of what you're saying here? I haven't done anything significant for the city, but I've worked hard. Why should I let your son step over me?" said Yang enviously. "As soon as I press this button, all the city's grain stores will turn to dust. Zhou Zheng, tell me where Yang Baishun is now." Director Yang began to dictate the rules, threatening with the detonator. "I'll tell you. Right now, he is in the safest place. But if you press this thing," Zheng answered him, trying to dissuade the crazy fat man from his plans. "I'll make you both pray for a quick death," he said, drilling the director with his eyes in an angry tone, hinting that he would regret it more than once. Hearing this, the fat man fidgeted, and a cold sweat broke out on his face. But suddenly he heard someone speaking to him. "Official Yang, this kind of indecision is not characteristic of you." "I'll give you a gift, and I'll tell you some news," said a voice from the tree. It was the man on the roof near the radio receiver. "I swear on my honor that," the man from the tree said, startling Director Yang with his remark. "Your son, Yang Baishun, has already cooled down," he continued. After hearing this, Yang Sr. was preparing to angrily push the button. But suddenly the detonator was knocked out of his hands with a precise blow and flew away from the director at a certain distance. At the exact moment, Zheng grabbed him by the collar and was ready to kill him, putting a knife to his throat and saying, "Go to Yang Baishun." However, he felt a threat approaching him very quickly from the left, which prevented him from completing his plan. He was thrown back by a blow, right up against his father. As he defended himself, he found himself back in the same position from which he had recently started the attack. He could deflect the attack and it passed him by without causing him any harm. "Killing my employer in front of me? That's not the rules," said Lu Yongshan, a 6th-ranked warrior. "This is my prey," he continued, protecting Director Yang from certain death because someone has to pay him for his work. "Today, I will have to inconvenience some people," he said, stepping back with the director. "But I'll get what I deserve," he continued, watching Jan's behavior. And with a glance, he cut a leaf from a passing tree. "Kill them for me. The money? I'll triple the amount. No, quadruple it," Jan said to him in a trembling voice, trying to make a deal. "Master, don't you realize the situation yet? Your son is already dead. Everything you own is destroyed, and now only I can save you," Lu Yongshan said to him. "All your possessions, everything you have. I think that will be enough," he told the customer his price. "Young master, the chairman. I've dealt with all his assistants here," Lan Shi said, coming out from behind the ruins. "Stay back. There's a 6th-ranked warrior here," Zheng warned him. "What, a 6th rank?" Lan Shi asked him in a surprised tone. "Yes, the 6th rank," Zheng repeated. "Zheng, I'll detain him, and you run away," said the father, blocking the path in front of him with his sword, so that his son would not dare to attack such a dangerous enemy. "Don't be silly, Dad. How long can you hold out in your current position?" Zheng shouted at him. Turning toward Lan Shi, the leader saw that he had already realized that he had nothing to do here, and he abruptly rushed back, trying to escape. But at the exact moment, Lu Yongshan abruptly rushed past Zheng and Hongqiang after the fugitive, ignoring the two. "Did I allow you to run away?" Lu Yongshan shouted after Lan Shi, swinging his sword to kill him. "Some 6th-ranked warrior. Does he really think he's omnipotent?" mumbled Zheng, deflecting his attack and protecting his comrade from injury and possibly death. After deflecting the attack, he threw the mercenary back to break the distance with him and have more time to react to his next attack. "You think that if those lowlifes couldn't kill you, you can match me," Lu Yongshan said with a smug, sneering tone. But suddenly he felt pain, and while he was losing his guard, Hongqiang was behind him, and he managed to injure him a little. Looking at his hand, he noticed his finger was slightly cut and said, strange. I couldn't have foreseen this." Behind him, the leader was preparing to strike him again. This blow could have been devastating for Yunshan. Still, he easily dodged it, quickly adjusting to the situation that had just happened to him. After dodging the blow, he tried to counterattack, but Zhou could not deflect it. "Oh, those pesky gnats really hurt me," Lu said. "Young master, get in the car!" Lan Su shouted at them, who were ready to leave and had prepared the car for them. Hearing the signal, Zheng immediately grabbed his father and ran to the car to escape from the enemy they could not defeat. Jumping into the trunk, he signaled for retreat. "Let's go!" Lan Shi took off running along with his comrades. As he retreated, Zheng threw 2 grenades behind him to prevent the pursuer from catching up with them and thus breaking away from the pursuit. The mercenary, running right behind them, seeing the grenades coming at him, slowed down dramatically to dodge the bombs. Having stopped to avoid being hit by the grenades, he could only look after the kidnappers, arms down, and realize that he had missed his target. Sitting under a tree, the wounded John muttered to himself, "Heh, heh, heh. What kind of a hired killer is he? In the end, he's just a bunch of useless people. If I can't get something, then don't even dream about it," he said with a devilish laugh, holding a grain storage detonator in his hand. Hearing what the director said, Yunshan realized what he was about to do and took action. Rushing over to him, he nailed his hand with the detonator to a tree with his sword to prevent him from pressing the button. "Ungrateful bastard! I don't mind sending you to your son either!" Lu's mercenary thundered angrily at Yan. But he kept laughing hysterically, shedding tears and looking into the mercenary's eyes. Even though his hand was nailed to a tree, he kept the detonator in place and pressed the button. Meanwhile, all the granaries in the place exploded and started to burn. Everyone who was defending them was confused, unable to understand what had happened. All they could do was watch everything that was happening, shed tears, and wonder how they would survive without food. Standing at the city entrance, Shu Li heard strange sounds. "What is it? Are those explosions?" "Commander, there's a problem," a soldier who was running to him with a message shouted. The granaries have been blown up." "The granaries have been blown up? Is it really the chairman, that official Yang?" He thought in confusion when he heard what had happened. "Commander, zombies!" He was told another, equally bad news before he could recover from the bad news. "The zombies are coming!" he heard, seeing a large crowd of various sizes nearby. From giants to man-sized, they were heading straight for the gate. "Until the people are completely evacuated, even if you have to sacrifice your lives, you must hold on to the last," the commander shouted as he unloaded a clip of ammunition at the advancing zombies from his minigun. Hearing the screams, Shu Li saw that the zombies were very close. One of them had already attacked his subordinate, knocking him to the ground. But he shouldn't relax, as one of the zombies also attacked him, trying to grab him with its teeth. The commander managed to react by shoveling his sword into its mouth. After the commander was knocked to the ground, he was surrounded by zombies on all sides, hungry for their blood and flesh. Having defended himself against one with his sword, he could do nothing to the other zombie, which was about to bite him on the hand he was using to cover his head to reduce the damage the monster could do. But suddenly, the monster fell to the ground from a surprise attack on the back of the head, inflicted by someone to save the commander. Zhou Zheng arrived just in time, having returned with the leader from a difficult patrol. "It's the chairman," Shu Li shouted joyfully, unable to contain his emotions. "The chairman is back." "Commander, all the citizens have already entered the city," said one of the soldiers guarding the gate. When he heard this information, Shu Li said in a commanding tone, "Hey, attention everyone!" "Everyone, hold the line. We're closing the city," he ordered, causing everyone to retreat a bit and hold back the monsters. "I never thought it was all because of Yang Chuan," said Zhou Hongqiang, standing on the wall near the monster resistance point. "The granaries have been blown up, and the casualties among the soldiers are too heavy," Shu Li told the leader. "This many zombies. Even if we have a few fifth-ranked soldiers, it will still be difficult to hold them off," the leader said. That's why we shouldn't fight back fiercely at the moment, but rather evacuate the people and then come back after this wave of zombies, Jung suggested. Just look. This kid still has a knack for running a city. He's got the right idea, Hung Chiang said, addressing the troop commander. Suddenly, Su Junwen approached them, brought a tray with 2 glasses of drinks, and offered them to the leader, saying, "Chairman, here, take this, drink it." Zheng took the drink in his hands and immediately began to drink, while the leader spoke to him, holding the glass in his hand. "Zheng, you said it right." "Okay, then I'll go and help with the evacuation," he said, drinking every last drop from the glass in a joyful voice. But suddenly, he got an unbearable headache and started to feel dizzy. Holding his head with one hand, he said, "Why do I feel so dizzy?" "But unfortunately, we cannot evacuate so many people without granaries," Hung Chiang said sadly. "Chairman, are you sure?" Su Junwen said to him, holding Zheng's body, who had fallen asleep due to the sleeping pills mixed into the drink. "This is my first and last drink as a leader," he said, laughing loudly to lighten the sad atmosphere. After dragging the sleeping Zheng to the helicopter, Su Junwen loaded him inside, and they took off. "Lanshi, Su Junwen, why am I in a helicopter?" Zhen asked his comrades when he woke up, not realizing what was happening. "Sir, the chairman insisted on staying," Lanshi answered him, telling him what had happened. Realizing what had happened, Zheng abruptly got up from his seat to return to the battlefield. Still, when he opened the door, he realized he was too high in altitude to jump. As he watched his father and Master Shu Li move further and further away from him, tears welled up in his eyes that he could not hold back. "Shu, try to survive," Zhao Hongchang said to his friend, watching the zombie invasion coming at them. "It's not funny," Shu Li replied, realizing what awaited them and knowing that the probability of survival in this situation was almost 0. "From the moment I became the garrison commander, my life no longer belongs to me alone," Shu Li continued with a smile. "Pass on my order. Let the soldiers who want to leave protect the people who do not have fighting skills while the evacuation continues," the leader said. "And the brothers who want to stay here with me," he continued, beginning to repel the zombie invasion. "Let's make some noise in this purgatory," he said, as if he were giving a battle cry that raised the morale of all his comrades to repel the invasion. "Zheng, even when all the people doubted you, Dad always believed in you," Hung Chiang said under his breath, trying to justify his actions in leaving his son and staying on the front line, knowing he might not see him again. "And I believe that one day, in this apocalypse, you will be," he continued as he faced the monster invasion. Rushing into the battle, he immediately chose the most enormous monster because he was most likely to be able to deal with it. A fierce battle against the zombie invasion began. Meanwhile, the helicopter with Zheng, Lanshi, and Su Junwen was moving further and further away from the contact line. While on the plane, holding his head, Zhen regretted that he could not stay with his father to help him in the battle. "Sir, I understand your feelings, but the leader did what he did to protect you." Lanshi tried to calm him down. "Lanshi," Zhen said to him, holding his head, regretting everything he had done and hadn't said to his father. "You know, we're just deserters," Zhen said, holding his head and shedding tears. "My dad," he said, remembering everything he had done for him, his support, and the faith he had always had in Zhen. "And all those people. It shouldn't have ended like this for them," he continued, thinking of everyone he knew who would soon die. "If I had known about Yang Chuan's intentions earlier, none of this would have happened," he continued, blaming and punishing himself for what was happening now. "Sir, the chairman once said," Su Junwen interrupted him, "in our troubled times, every day we live is a priceless gift. No one can predict their fate. What happened is not your fault," Su said, trying to calm Zheng down. "A life lived happily is the greatest consolation for those who have died," Junwen continued. "Madame Su is absolutely right," Lan Shi supported her. "We must go on living," he said to Zheng, trying to encourage him. But suddenly, the helicopter began to shake. Their vehicle was being attacked in midair, and they had to do something about it. At the exact second, huge claws penetrated one of the doors and got inside. The monster that attacked them was enormous. "Sir, we are under attack by monsters," said Su Junwen, who was flying the helicopter in alarm. 3 monster birds were circling above them, waiting for the right opportunity to attack again and eat fresh meat. "I'll chase them away," Lan Shi said selflessly, attaching a rope to himself so he could return when he was done with them. But suddenly, Zheng intercepted the rope and ordered Lan Shi to stay. The order read, "Stay and protect Su better." "Sir, but I..." Lan tried to argue with him, but no one was listening. "Not an order," Zheng Yu repeated to him again, jumping out of the helicopter and preparing for battle. "Jump attack," Zheng immediately used his unique skill to inflict critical damage on the enemy. Landing on the enemy's back, he continued to pummel him until he could throw him off. "Ha, you guys are really stubborn," Zheng thought as he wounded one of the monsters and noticed the rest were unafraid. They did not run away, but continued to try to attack him. Suddenly, he heard a deafening sound that struck fear into the eyes and souls of people. Upon hearing it, the monsters who were attacking the helicopter immediately fled. A giant dragon appeared in front of them, looking very threatening, and could have destroyed the helicopter with everyone inside. But they were lucky. The dragon did not care about them. It simply turned around and flew in the other direction where it needed to go. "Phew, it's good that this giant doesn't care about us," said Su Junwen, breathing a sigh of relief. "This is the first time I've seen such a giant monster," Lan Shi added. "Madam Su, I didn't expect you to be able to fly a helicopter so well," Su Junwen Zheng praised her, smiling at her. "Sir, you're praising me too much. Before the end of the world, my family actually—" Su Junwen replied, embarrassed. Suddenly, Lan Shi interrupted them, shouting, "Mister, hurry up! Look!" pointing to something before him on the horizon. "There! Is that a city?" he shouted excitedly, trying to see if his eyes were deceiving him. "The buildings." "Sir, I bought this map a few years ago from a traveling warrior," he said, taking out the map and showing it to Zheng Lan Shi. "If it's not a lie and it's really true, then the city we just saw is right here," pointing to a particular mark on the map Lan was holding. "Titan, the name certainly sounds majestic," Zheng said, looking at the map in thought. "Sir," Su Junwen said anxiously, "we damaged the helicopter's tail section in the battle. We need to land immediately." "Okay," Zheng replied calmly. "Besides, flying a helicopter is too much for me. Find a place to land," he said, agreeing to stop. "It's not yet 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and if my estimates are correct, the city of Titan is about 20 kilometers from here. I think we'll make it by nightfall," Zheng told his comrades. Gathering all their belongings from the helicopter, they began to walk through the hacienda to the city. Suddenly, Zheng sensed someone's presence nearby, and without hesitation, he quickly prepared for battle. Pulling out his dagger, he swung sharply to strike the enemy first and a crushing blow to avoid a long fight. But when he got closer to the target and examined it, it turned out that it was no ordinary forest dweller. It was a hamster gnawing on something, hiding in a corner. Having been frightened by a trifle, Su felt embarrassed that a hamster had shocked her. Zheng reassured her, "Don't worry, this animal won't attack a person." "This is my first time seeing Su in such a panic, so this is the first time you've traveled outside the city, right?" Zheng asked her. "I'm sorry, I made such a fuss over nothing," she apologized, embarrassed. "If this little animal has appeared here, we must be close to a crowded place," Zheng said, taking out his compass. "The road! If we follow the road, we can quickly get to Titan," Lan Shi shouted as he stepped onto the roadway. "Someone's coming!" he shouted aggressively, fighting to protect Zheng and Su. Leaving Su Junwen behind, Zheng stood beside Lan to help him defend himself in an emergency. After a while, they could see a car coming from over the horizon. At a distance of 1 meter from the travelers, it stopped. Stopping in front of Zheng and Lan, one of the people in the car's trunk looked out, probably their leader. He began to look at the people in front of whom the car had stopped. There were 2 guys with things in front of them, but he was uninterested. His eyes fell on the girl behind him. He was immediately interested in her, appreciating her physique, and could not tear his lustful gaze away from her, only after a few words. Not bad. Seeing that his girlfriend was being stared at with a devouring gaze, Zheng shot his bow, firing 3 arrows toward that lustful guy. The arrows flashed millimeters away from the stalker's face, but flew past without hitting him. Zheng was not aiming at the guy, but the shadowy snakes behind him. All of his arrows hit their targets in a flash. "He's really good with his bow," said one in the car, noticing Zheng's accurate shots. "Friends, be careful. This is a wild place. There could be danger everywhere," Zheng said, in a rough voice, as if to say they should not mess with them. "You?" the stalker shouted from the car trunk, pulling out his sword, wanting to teach the bully a lesson. But he was interrupted by a voice from the car's interior. "Ah, Chen, don't do anything stupid. We have to hurry," the voice said. "If those bastards dare to do anything to us, I will fight with all my might," Lan shouted after the guys in the car who had already left. "I'm sorry I did it again," Su began apologizing to Jen. Still, he reassured her that it was nothing to worry about, that she was not to blame for anything, and that she should not blame herself for growing up to be so beautiful. "You can't beat them now. You need to train hard," Zheng said to Lan Shi. "Yes," he replied with a sigh, walking with Zheng in front. "How? It should be much easier now," Su Junwen exclaimed happily as she looked at Zheng. Boss, why did you stop me? Didn't you see that girl? Said Ah Chen with a sinister smile to his boss. It's best not to mess with that guy with the bow. We have more important things to do, so we shouldn't waste time. While they are in Titan, we'll meet again, the boss explained to his friend in a reserved manner. Meanwhile, our heroes had already reached the city. Looking at the city's outskirts, it was clear that the town was living peacefully. As soon as they entered the city, they saw a strange creature before them. It looked like a horse, but it had deer horns. It was a deer calf. Next to this strange animal was a man who immediately asked Zheng, "Young man, do you need a cart?" "A cart?" Zheng asked in surprise. "You'll have a hard time finding another horse-drawn cart, and my services are not that expensive," said the old man with a sly smile. "We are yours. How much will the trip cost?" Zheng asked his grandfather, while Su stared at the horse, fascinated, and Lan stood by her side, watching indifferently. They seemed to be foreigners. What luck, the old man thought, wondering how much money he could get from the family for the trip. Suddenly, many more men rushed to the guy and began offering their services, arguing that it was too expensive. "Why not take my car? It would be cheaper and faster, and I'm even cheaper. Take my cart. It's the cheapest of all." "Shit, I forgot about this pack of wolves. I don't think it's going to work," the old man said in frustration, trying to escape the crowd of carriers who immediately attacked him. "Hey, get off me, boys. I'll take you for a piece of the lower white crystal. We'll be leaving soon," he shouted, waving away everyone who ran to Zheng. "Commander, did you catch this grasshopper?" Zheng asked the driver. I'm not that good. I paid a medium blue crystal for this handsome fellow. I bought him from a trainer," the man replied. "Trainers?" Jen asked again, unsure what he meant by trainers. "Actually, they're all warriors too. They just can tame animals," Grandpa explained, telling him about them. "They use them for battles or sell them, so they are often called trainers," the grandfather explained in more detail. "They use them for fighting or sell them, so they are often called trainers," the grandfather explained in more detail. "Judging by your appearance, the three of you came to Titan from far away, right? Do you have relatives here?" the old man asked the passengers. "Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me for my bad mouth. I shouldn't be meddling in your business," the carrier apologized, embarrassed. "Sir, don't suffer like this. The leader would definitely not want this," Sun said to Zheng, worried about him and looking at his appearance. "Who said I'm suffering?" asked Zheng. "I'm just thinking about what I should do in Titan," Zheng said to Su Junwen, smiling gently. Arriving at the place, the heroes were stunned to see the massive wall before them and were surprised by the service. "Gentlemen, here we are. Titan is right in front of you," said the old man, pointing to the gate. The gate inscription reads, "Entrance fee is 1 star." A lady was standing at the gate advertising her product. "Detailed maps of Titan, only 1 star, come on up." Approaching the auntie, Su bought 1 map, saying, "Auntie, please give me 1 map." "It's not for nothing that this is a central city. Even the entrance fee is charged," Zheng said. "The 5th district of Titan City." "And there's nothing special inside the city? No better than in the countryside," said Zheng, walking ahead. "I wonder if there are any hotels here," Zheng asked Su, who was looking at the map. "I'll look for some," she replied. "Yeah, it's just right for the slums. We've been looking for it for so long, and there's not a single resident here," Zheng said in a tired voice, sitting on a bench and sighing heavily. "Sir, the name of this hotel seems appropriate," Su said, looking up and noticing that the building was not far away. "It does look impressive from the outside," Lanchi said as he stood with his belongings in front of the hotel entrance. "Welcome to the Song Hotel," said the girl who greeted them at the entrance. "Would you like to stay at our hotel?" she continued. "If I told you we just came in to use the restroom, would you believe me?" Zheng asked, smiling. "And you have a great sense of humor. Please come over and I'll check you in," the girl said. Approaching the front desk, the girl behind the counter said, "Hello, a regular room in our hotel costs 2 low-grade crystals." 2 low-grade white crystals, Su asked in surprise. "Huh? For 1 night?" asked Lan, confused. "No problem. We'll check in," said Zheng, paying for the room. "It's expensive, but better than living in that haunted house." Once he was settled in the room and had unpacked all his belongings, Zheng had only one thought. "Dad, we're okay now." Suddenly, there was a knock in Jen's room. Opening the door, he saw Su standing there. "Su, did you want something?" Zheng asked her. "Sir, actually," Su muttered under her breath anxiously. If you have something to say it directly, Zheng replied, embarrassed. Actually, I just realized that our money is only enough for 1 week's stay here, Su said worriedly. Sir, the local warriors seem to have quite high ranks, yes, Lan asked. Well, in such a huge city, rank is equal, Zheng replied. So a person with a rank like mine, even with a great desire, he can't become a soldier? Lan Shi asked Zheng. Don't worry, you can be promoted. The competition here is tough, but there are more than enough resources, Zheng reassured him. I will try my best, sir, Lan assured him. Even though Su said yesterday that we had almost no money left, I actually have more than 1,700 white crystals in my backpack and a few blue crystals. But if I want to stay here, I should save up, Zheng thought. Well, what a beauty. I see you're very confused. If you have any questions, you can ask me for an extra fee. A girl came out of nowhere, grabbed Lan's hand, and offered her help. Hey, the warriors in Titan will buy information, Zheng smiled at the girl. The warriors in Titan don't have money, the girl asked again. The source is verified. The only problem is that you must give 5 stars. I also have an exclusive map of the locations of monsters outside of Titan. Just 1 white crystal. I guarantee the quality, she whispered to Zheng, moving as close to Zheng as possible. Be careful, the girl who had just sold Zheng the map waved at them as she left. This is some kind of extortion, Lan said as he followed Zheng. We don't know anything here. It's better to spend a little money than just running around, Zheng replied. This is our first stop in Titan, Zheng said as he and Lan arrived at the Adventurers Guild. Once inside, they saw that there weren't as many people as they could have hoped for. Looking at each other, they took a turn. When it was their turn, they were handed forms with personal information to fill through a hole in the window. After filling out the forms, they had to go through another registration procedure. Put your hand on the device to make sure your real strength matches the information you entered, said the girl who was doing the registration. They have this kind of technology? Zheng thought in amazement as he placed his hand on the reader. He put his hand on the device, and after a while, it showed the status of the person who touched it. Trainee Warrior was displayed on Zheng's screen. The rank is correct. You can now become a warrior trainee of the Warrior Union. You can take on tasks here. You will also have to pay a membership fee every 3 months, the employee explained Zheng's duties in a monotone, frustrated voice. That look is like she despises me, Zheng thought, as he saw the receptionist's unhappy expression. Warrior of the 2nd rank, Lan's screen read. Congratulations, you've become a member of the Union. This is your nameplate, the employee said to Lan in a sudden change of mood and a happy voice. Sir, do we really need to register? Dan Shi asked. Of course, it's the fastest way to raise your rank and get paid, Zheng replied. This works for me, Zheng said, looking at the map he had bought from a girl on the street as he chose his next mission. Lan Shi, you and I have different ranks, so you don't need to go on missions with me, Zheng said to him. How can I? I have to protect you, sir, Lan Shi selflessly replied. You've been with me for so long, and you really think I need help? Zheng said in a relaxed tone, stumping Lan. What about training? Don't ruin my expectations. When suddenly a blue crystal flew into his hands, Lan said, Sir, you... He said in surprise, not realizing his wastefulness. We don't have any money right now. I don't need it, he said, trying to return the crystal. Calm down. It's my personal money. Su won't find out, Zheng said, telling Lan to be quiet. After giving the crystal to his friend, Ping went to the task receipt point, where he was told, If you still feel uncomfortable, try to upgrade your rank. Meanwhile, Lan sat at the table, clutching the crystal, feeling immensely grateful to his master. Hen Zheng received the task and went to fulfill it. As he entered the bus, he heard many people who were unhappy about something. Don't push me, I'm going to throw up, said a girl. Brother, it's been days since you took a bath, said a guy next to Zheng. Hey, I need a separate car, said the guy in front. When they arrived at their destination, the bus announced, Let's go, we've arrived at the Sun Market. Those who want to hunt can rent a car right at the entrance. I didn't expect there to be such a lively place so far from the city, Zhen thought as he traveled through the Sun Market. Young man, do you need a car? I'll give you the lowest price, asked the man renting Zhen's vehicle. How much is this motorcycle? Asked Zheng, approaching the two-wheeler. The deposit is 2 white crystals, 5 stars a day, and there is an extra charge for gasoline, the man replied. I need to go here. How much gasoline does it take to get there? Asked Zheng, pointing to the place on the map. Huh? Even 5th-rank soldiers don't dare go into that area. Are you sure? You're going to get yourself killed, the landlord replied. Yes, I am sure. I want to give them a present like this, Zheng replied boldly, smiling at the worried man. Arriving at the place, it was clear that it was mealtime. The wolves were tearing up the prey they had caught. They caught deer. Suddenly, one of the wolves fell to the ground dead. An arrow hit his head. The other predators were frightened and hid nearby. As they began to track down where they could have been attacked, they became furious and were ready to tear to pieces anyone who came into their sight. For killing the wolf, Zheng received 1,600 experience points. Wow, so many, he shouted happily. Bare rocks and a swamp. It looks like this place will be my training ground for a while, Zheng said enthusiastically. Vulnerability Finder peeked out of the net and used his hunter skill to find the best place to hit his targets. I didn't buy any arrows, and these are completely worn out, so I can't use them, Zheng muttered in frustration as he looked at his weapon. But it's a great opportunity to practice hand-to-hand combat, Zheng said, pulling out his daggers and jumping toward the angry wolves. Caught between the wild beasts, he was surrounded on all sides. Suddenly, one of the predators attacked Zheng, slightly tearing his equipment, but could not do any damage. They've arrived, Zheng thought as the number of enemies grew. Well, let's train, he said to the predators, preparing for a long and exhausting battle. During the battle, the boy trained not only to fight, but also to practice gymnastics. He dodged enemies using various methods and repeatedly stood on the bridge to dodge a jumping attack. Okay, that's enough for today. It's time to go back, he said, satisfied with himself and his work, having slaughtered many monsters. On his way back, he still encountered a few wolf monsters, but quickly dealt with them. It was not difficult at all. 2 blue crystals. A good harvest today, Zheng rejoiced as he tossed the crystals he had found in the monsters he had killed. But I want to become even stronger. The skills of a thief alone won't be enough for me, he thought, holding the dagger in his hand and making future plans. I'll have to study the power of the stars, Zheng thought after deciding to become even stronger, because who knows what kind of opponents he would face. Commander, I'm returning the motorcycle, Zheng said to the landlord as he returned the bike. Did you fall into the lair of the beast? The man asked the young man, seeing the motorcycle's appearance. Almost, the boy answered hesitantly. Young man, aren't you afraid of death? The landlord asked him in an affirmative tone as he walked away. Sir, why do you look like that? Su Junwen anxiously asked. Sir, have you been attacked? Lan Shi supported her. The training was a little tough, Zheng replied, embarrassed. Lan Shi, what about you? Did your level increase after the blue crystal? The master asked him. Sir, thanks to your blue crystal, I feel I will reach the 3rd rank in the next few days, he replied happily. Sir, we have almost no money and you're giving him a blue crystal to train with? Su Junwen shouted at Zheng in anger. Don't worry, Su, Zheng calmly replied. Look, these are my loot from today, showing her the 2 blue crystals he had gotten from hunting in the monsters today. Yes, Su, and you'll have to work hard for the next few days, Zheng told her. Huh? She asked in surprise. Well, now there's no need to stay at the hotel. The 2 blue crystals should be enough to buy an apartment here, right? He asked Su Jianwen. One more, Zheng said, pulling out the blue crystal he had inside another monster. I've collected almost 20 blue crystals this week. It's a really good place to train and make money, he said, holding up the blue crystal he had just taken out of the monster. But there aren't many animals nowadays. I think it's time to think of some other way, he said, holding the vial of healing potion. Really, these are scarce mushrooms, aren't they? Zheng said, noticing some glowing mushrooms in the rock nearby. Remembering what that girl, the information trader, had said. By the way, I also have some free but essential information for you. If you find any plants outside the city you have never seen before, collect them. Most of them are mutants that have absorbed star power, which is very rare, Zheng thought as he evaluated the find. This is definitely a mutated plant. Even I can feel the star power inside of them, he said as he picked up the find. He's crazy, said one of the soldiers standing nearby, seeing Zheng returning from another mission. If I didn't know his rank, I would doubt that he goes out to fight huge monsters daily. Hey, crazy guy, did you survive again? Asked one of the soldiers Zheng greeted. You seem to be a masochist, said a girl standing next to him. Aren't you afraid that one day you won't be able to go back? Another soldier standing nearby asked him. Commander, I'm returning the motorcycle. A young man returned from hunting and told the man. You're early today, the man replied, surprised at Zheng's quick return. It's just that I was planning to go to the city market today, the boy replied, walking away. Eh? What? The commander was surprised. You're crazy. You also go shopping, the landlord said, surprised that he was interested in ordinary people's activities. Limited edition Chanel perfume. 1 bottle for the whole Titan. Only 1 white crystal of the highest grade. Don't pass by, one of the vendors shouted from the market. Sir, brother, buy some perfume for your beloved. I'll give it to you cheaper, he said to a soldier's girlfriend who was passing by, trying to sell the goods. Huh? She was surprised at the merchant's impudence. Who are you calling a brother? Open your eyes! I'm a girl, she said, grabbing the merchant's head. I'm sorry, Vohin. No, beautiful warrior, he began to apologize, frightened. 1 medium white crystal, I'll take it, Zheng said, inhaling the scent of the perfume and offering his price. Sold! Sold! The merchant shouted, snatching it from the girl's hands, who still had his wig. Gee, I'm going to go bankrupt, said the merchant, flashing his bald head. After making the purchase, Jen walked on, thinking, Junwen, she'll probably like it. Behind him, he could hear the salesman again. Beauty, I have a perfume that is no longer in production. There is only 1 bottle left in the whole world. Just 1 white crystal of the highest grade, and it's yours. He could be heard trying to sell the unique perfume to someone again. After moving away to a certain distance, Zhang looked around to ensure no one was around. Yes, there is no one around me. After making sure no one was around, Zhang began to remove the mutton jackal skins from his interworld storage. After a while, a man approached him, interested in Zhang's goods. He looked at the letter. Mutant jackal skins of the 3rd rank. 1 inferior white crystal for a damaged one, and 1 medium white crystal for a good one. Master, perhaps you can give me something cheaper, a man who approached him and began to examine the goods asked. Sorry, no bargaining, Zheng replied. From his looks, he's only a beginner. But how did he get so many 3rd-rank animal skins? However, the skins are in perfect condition, suspicious. The man about to buy the goods thought, Well, I'll take them all. Brother, let's be friends. My name is Changjan, the man said, extending his hand with an offer. After buying all the goods from Jen, he handed him his business card. Victory Equipment Store. Brother Chan, aren't you going to check the goods before you leave? Zheng asked him, confused. I trust my friends. Besides, I only need to look at the goods once to understand everything, he reassured, patting him on the shoulder. Yurat, if you need any tools, come to my shop, Changjan said as he drove away. Okay, Brother Chan, Zheng shouted after him. What, he sold everything so quickly, said a guy standing nearby waiting for a moment. Commander, if we had wolfskins like that, our chances of success would be much higher, he told his boss. That's enough. It's not important to us, the commander replied. But we spent 5 days on this mission. Will we have to cancel the contract? The guy exclaimed in confusion, and the commander sighed heavily. Gentlemen, if it's all about the armor, I know something about it, said Jen, sitting nearby and overheard their conversation. Perhaps we can make a deal, said Zhang, proposing a deal to the strangers whose conversation he had overheard. You can detect armor defects? A nearby commander asked Zhang, surprised. That's right, Zhang replied. But you're just a rookie. You've probably never seen steel armor before, right? If you want to deceive people, find someone else, the commander's comrade said in displeasure. 4th-ranked steel armor activates a shield during attacks. Many 7th-ranked warriors can't handle it, Zhang said, giving all the armor details. If I'm not mistaken, you didn't know about it? As soon as you saw the mission with the 4th-level mutant beast, you immediately took it on, not expecting it to be so difficult to handle? Zhang asked. Why should we believe you? The commander standing next to Zhang, listening to all this, asked. The price? He asked in a disappointed voice as if he had been forced to do so. He wanted to know how much this deal would cost him. 1 inferior blue crystal, Zhang replied briskly, responding to the captain. Why don't you go yourself then? Xiao Heng asked Zhang aggressively. For this mission of yours, the reward is 5 low-grade blue crystals. If you buy my information, you can earn 4 more blue crystals. But if the contract is broken and the damage reaches 30%, the price will rise to another blue crystal, Zhang answered him thoughtfully. Warhammer Commander Xiao Heng, the leader turned to his comrade. Your information must be correct. And if not, you must understand the consequences, he continued. After concluding a lucrative deal, Zhang said, I, Zhou Zhang, congratulate you in advance on a successful mission. Head to toe in 11th grade flaky plates? And is it possible to break through that? Just like that, the commander said. Commander, isn't this all nonsense? His comrade asked. No, I feel something is wrong with him, he said, watching Jen slowly walk away. Is he just a rookie? I'm afraid this guy is not as simple as he looks, the commander continued, still following Jung with his eyes. Sir, I found a few places that are suitable for us, Su Junwen said, showing Jen, who had returned home, the photos of the places she had picked out. Great! You found so many great houses in such a short time, Jen said to Su, looking at the photos. This is my work, Su said, embarrassed. This one, Jung showed the photo of his chosen house. This one, it's in the first neighborhood, so it costs more, Su objected. The first? Isn't that a neighborhood for the rich? Asked Lan Shi. Rich people? Then now we'll feel what a rich life is like, Jung replied to his friend's requests, smiling. Wow, it's even more beautiful here than in the photos, said Su, looking around the house. It's definitely worth the money, Jung said. Master, I have already given your wife the keys to the house. I wish you lots of money, and I look forward to our next transaction, said the manager, happy to have sold the house. Sir, I'm sorry. I just didn't explain everything to that manager, and he made a mistake, Su said, embarrassed. It's okay, Jung reassured her. By the way, I almost forgot. This is for you. Su Junwen handed over the perfume he had bought from the vendor. Sir, Su said, even more embarrassed by everything happening. Hey, you haven't forgotten anything, Lan Shi shouted in an irritated voice to the couple, dragging his belongings. But no one paid him any attention. Boss, it's that kid, said a stranger who had crossed paths with Jen and Lan on the road. You still can't get over that girl? The boss said, smoking his pipe. Yeah, I'm in love, he said enthusiastically, looking toward Zheng and Su. I guess it's love at first sight. I'm not going to stop you, but just wait until we're done with our business, the boss said to him, exhaling smoke. Boss, don't worry, I understand, his friend replied, waiting for the moment they would finally finish their business. You're lucky today, the stalker said as he passed Zheng, turning around and staring after him. You held back. Consider yourself lucky today, Zheng thought as he sheathed his blade. After reaching the landlord's house, Zheng returned on his motorcycle and headed to his usual hunting ground. When he got to the spot, he saw a crowd of people and many cars blocking the road, so he had to stop early. When he stopped, an armed man approached him and said, Stop, this marshland belongs to the Milky Way gang. Get out of here. The Milky Way gang? Belong to them? Zheng said in a disgruntled tone, surprised by these statements from strangers. What if I say no? Asked Zheng, deciding to get out of the vehicle and prepare for the night. Hey, you fucking warrior trainee, are you bored with life? The man who had warned him said as he approached Zheng, holding a massive sword in his hand. You will answer for those words, Zheng said, only smiling in response to what the stout, self-confident man said. Are you sure there are colorful mushrooms here? The gang leader asked the customer. Mr. Suntang, I wouldn't dare fool you. The problem is the mutant red wolves guarding them. I would have collected them long ago, the old man replied. Okay, brothers, shoot all the mutants in the area and look carefully, said Suntang, giving the order to his gang members. Mr. Suntang, if you really find the colorful mushrooms, then I owe you, his debtor asked tremblingly. Get out of here. You'll be taken off the list when we find them, Suntang replied. Yes. The old man sighed with relief. No wonder he's the head of the Milky Way gang. Even I, a fourth-ranked warrior, feel like a punk in front of him. Suntang stood on the cliff and watched his men kill the monsters individually, but his gang also took casualties. Suddenly, someone called Suntang's phone. Picking up the phone, he said, Speak! In response, he heard, Mr. Suntang. Mr. Suntang, someone has broken into your house. He killed Jia Laosan, Zhang Guang, and Liu Qi. What? Asked Suntang, irritated, with surprise in his voice. Losers! You're all just wretches. Stop him. The man who killed our gang members shouldn't be allowed to escape, he shouted angrily into the phone. Let half the men look for mushrooms, and the rest comb the neighborhood, if they find someone who is not one of ours, Suntan said, clutching the phone in rage. Let them kill him on the spot. As soon as this command was given, everyone started to carry out the instructions simultaneously, leaving all their business behind. It's a good thing I have these new abilities. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been easy for me to kill those 3 fifth-ranked warriors, Zheng muttered, hiding among the rocks and grass, looking at his skill window. I see tracks here, one of the gang suddenly exclaimed, coming across Zheng's trail. What? What is it? Quickly, everyone, come here, he shouted, only to see Zheng's silhouette approaching him. When the gang came running to hear the screams, they only saw the dead body of their comrade, who was calling them to help him. Who dared to plot against us? The gang leader, Sun Tan, shouted aggressively. Who? Who the hell are you? The leader shouted frantically, trying to shout to the mysterious killer of his comrades. The person who is worth a cent is the leader of this gang. We need to find a way to finish him off. Jung thought about his action plan while sitting in the hut. He's a 7th-ranked warrior. I don't think my speed will help me here, Jung thought in confusion as he stepped back. Looks like I'll have to abandon my plan after all, he thought, as he retreated further and further away from his opponents. What's that sound? One of the gang members thought, hearing something strange near him. He went to the rocks to check it out. It's the wind, he breathed a sigh of relief, finding no one in the place where Jung had recently been. My perfect plan has been thwarted by this bunch of nobodies, Jung said, as he walked through the forest in the middle of an unknown area. Suddenly, Jung saw something strange behind him and heard a strange sound. He turned around and exhaled because there was no threat in sight. He picked up a bone near him and looked closely at it, trying to figure out whose bone it was. When he looked up, everything became clear to him. 6 skeletons were hanging in the web above him, and some of the lower ones had already lost half of their bones, so they had been here for a long time. Shit, Jung said in a worried voice, realizing what a mess he was in. Suddenly, a spider web flew at him from one of the trees. Sensing the danger, Jengrisko jumped away, but the web, like a meteorite, pierced the ground, leaving a crater in its wake. After such an unexpected attack, the enemy appeared. It was a high-level forest spider that Jung had fallen right into its lair. After jumping to a safe distance, Jung pulled on his tetavu and loaded 3 arrows into his bow to hit the enemy. But unfortunately, the arrows he shot failed to harm the spider. They did not even pierce its skin. They just flew off, hitting him. Immediately after Jung's attack, the spider began to counterattack, releasing poisonous webs at the boy. Jung dodged every shot by jumping on the trees, but the spider's shot that hit a tree broke it in half. Retreating, Jung hid behind a tree, but the spider deftly moved through the forest at an incredible speed, thus quickly catching up to Jung. I cannot punch it, and its speed is too fast. This time, it's going to be really hard, Jung thought, after all his attempts to wound the enemy. As Jung continued running away from the spider, he dodged its web repeatedly, yet he almost got caught once. When Jung dodged another web shot, the spider managed to kick him in flight, thus catching him. As it approached the boy, not allowing him to escape again, the monster was already closing its mouth to feast on its prey. But Jung was not going to give up. He was trying to survive with all his might, and at that moment, he took his blade out of its sheath to try to attack it even in such a disadvantageous position. Waving the blade before him, he wound it, cutting off one of its tusks. I did it! Jung rejoiced when he saw that he had wound his opponent. His thirst for victory increased, and his hope of winning reappeared. After being wounded, the monster staggered backward and jumped back, dropping its weapon and allowing Jung to get up. Star power? Jung was surprised, looking at his blade, which began to glow snow white. Warrior. I've finally become a 1st-ranked warrior, Jung said, flashing a fiery aura, preparing to finish off the monster, as he now had everything he needed to do so. Boss Hugh, we made a lot of money this time, the man with the mustache driving the car said to his leader. Ah, he said sharply, turning the wheel. Someone up ahead, and continued maneuvering to avoid a collision. Jung, who had survived a deadly battle with a dangerous enemy, was walking toward them. Hey, are you suicidal? The driver asked him. Fuck off, he said to Jung in a rude tone, trying to drive around him and continue in his direction. You... The driver glared at him in anger. That's enough. Let him get in, the commander said to him. Count yourself lucky, Boss Hua said. You can get in the car, the driver said, gesturing for him to get in. Thank you, Boss Hua, Jung said, bowing and thanking him. As he got into the car, he saw another guy next to him who offered him a cigarette. Thank you, I don't smoke. I just recently arrived in Titan. I don't know what kind of unit you are. We are the Pattern Squad, the guy replied, taking a cigarette out of his pack to smoke. There are only pumped-up guys in the squad, and the name is so girly, the boy said, lighting a cigarette. Brother, do you know if there are any places on Titan where we can practice our star power? Jung asked him. Exhaling the smoke from his cigarette, the guy answered him. In the 3rd district, there's a warrior training center there, but it's not cheap, emphasizing the high prices of this place. When they reached the outer district of Titan, the car stopped. When Jung was let out of the car, he immediately thanked the pattern unit. Bowing to his rescuers, he expressed his gratitude for their help. Thank you, I'm in your debt, and waved his hand in their wake. In response to Jung, the driver merely raised his hand, gesturing that it was nothing to worry about. On the way home, Jung could not contain his joy. If I'm a first-ranked warrior now, I need to think about how to raise my level. Just before entering the house, Lan Shi was already meeting him to tell him the good news. When he saw his master, he said, "Master, I have already reached the 3rd rank," surprising Zheng with this news. He ran up to his master and hugged him tightly, unable to contain his joy. In a trembling voice, he said, "It's all thanks to the blue crystals you gave me." Confused by what was happening, Zheng said to him, "Actually, I've accomplished something as well." Waiting for his turn to share his news, he said he had also become a warrior, but only of the 1st rank. Rejoicing at Zheng's achievement as much as he did at his own, Lan asked, "Are you a 1st-rank warrior?" And Su Junwen, unable to hold back her tears of joy, added, "Sir, at last." Sitting at the table, holding a glass of wine to celebrate the occasion, Zheng said, "I told you that your life would improve, and soon it will be even better." Raising the glasses above them, a loud clinking sound was heard, marking the beginning of the celebration of these achievements. As they pulled their glasses toward them, they said, "Bottoms up!" The next day, Zheng and Lan Shi headed to the 3rd district to reach the warrior training center. When they saw the building, Lan Shi asked his master, "Sir, the training here must be costly, right?" He was told that raising the level was the main thing, and the price was unimportant. When Lan went inside, he was so surprised by what he saw that he inadvertently spoke out. "These people have such high ranks." Zheng was also surprised by what he saw, but refrained from saying anything, limiting himself to thinking, "Indeed, very high. Fortunately, the web of the spider I killed while hunting was sold at an auction at a sky-high price. Otherwise, I would be unable to pay for my studies." Seeing the confused boys, the manager immediately approached them and offered her help, addressing them and saying, "If you two need training, please come in." When they got to the reception desk, she asked them again for some information, so they could fill out the forms. "Excuse me, what level of training do you need?" Being nearby, Zheng answered her, "Let's open the level 3 room first." After entering all the recruits' information, she began to tell them additional information they needed to know. To open the 3rd level hall, you need to pay 1 blue crystal. This is a token to open the hall. Before you can enter it, you need to sign a contract. After completing the registration, Lan Shi was very excited and said to Zheng, "Sir, I will not let you down." "Sir, I won't let you down." Trying to calm his friend down, Zheng replied, urging him to go to the training as soon as possible. "Okay, let's not get emotional, just come in." When Lan left the registration room, Zheng immediately approached the manager with a request that stunned her. "Please help me open the 5th level hall." When she recovered from the shock, she just let out a surprised gasp. "What?" Realizing how dangerous this idea was, she asked the young man again if he hadn't made a mistake with his order. "Sir, are you sure? A 5th level training room?" "Yes, open it quickly," Zheng said quickly, hurrying the girl. Realizing what might happen, she warned him in a frightened voice. "I have to warn you, this is not a virtual training room. Real monsters are fought here." After hearing all the warnings, he didn't bother to listen to anything else, just pointing to the screen with a 5th-ranked mutant gorilla and mumbling, "I know, let's go with this one." Impressed by Zheng's choice, the manager was distraught. Looking after him, she had only one question. "This mutant gorilla is about level 6. Is he going to die?" After leading Zheng to his training room, the manager finally said, "Your training room is here. Insert your badge to enter. I wish you good luck." Standing in front of the gym, Zheng could feel the threatening aura emanating from the monster all over his body and penetrating through the door, thinking, "Even through the door, I can feel the dangerous aura of the mutant gorilla." The 3 soldiers in the training center, passing Zheng, suddenly began to discuss him, pointing at him. "Huh? Quick, look, this is the first time I've seen this method of suicide." Putting his hand to his throat, one of them said, "If I were you, I'd rather cut my own throat." Zheng, surprised by the passers-by's impudence, replied in a rude tone, "None of your business." Hearing such an impudent response, one of the 3 men shouted at Zheng, pointing his finger at him, "Stop right there! Quickly apologize to our master." But Zheng did not respond to their aggression, but only activated the entrance to the hall and spoke to them. "Well, do you also want to try it with me?" When they didn't answer, he asked them again, but this time in an aggressive tone and raising his voice. "Well, don't you have the courage?" When the door opened, Zheng took the first step inside. Almost completely entering the hall, he spoke one last line to the bullies. Then go back to where you came from. Left standing in front of the door, the humiliated trio boiled with anger, and behind them, many onlookers had already gathered vigorously to discuss what had happened. Did I hear that wrong? Did someone get tired of living and decide to challenge this thing? I saw him enter with my own eyes, and that kid is only a first-rate warrior. Pulling out a cigarette and lighting it, one of the three henchmen handed it to his boss, saying, "Mr. Luo, don't be angry, this kid is just suicidal." After lighting a cigarette, the leader began to verbally vent his aggression that had been pent up because of Jung's antics. He wanted to die quickly? He's lucky I'm not the one to fulfill his dream. Upon entering the gorilla's room, an alert sounded. "The biological tranquilizer has expired. Please be ready to attack." Jumping back to increase the distance, Jeng stated, "Hey, Giant, it's up to you to make sure I can advance to the second rank." The mutant gorilla, unconscious until recently, woke up in a flash. The tranquilizer had worn off. The monster opened its eyes and began to drill Jung with its bloodthirsty gaze. As soon as the numbness from the tranquilizer passed and the mutant gorilla could control his body, he stood up. He began pounding his chest with his fists and roaring loudly, trying to intimidate his opponent. Meanwhile, outside the door, the number of onlookers only grew as they discussed the fate of the guy who had entered the room. "I've never seen anything like this," said one of the three bullies. The commander of the trio gleefully declared with a sarcastic smile on his face, "Haha, he's probably dead by now." Turning to his comrades, holding a cigarette in his mouth, smiling ear to ear, he said happily, "Shall we go in to pick up the corpse?" The anxious onlookers only became even more frantic upon hearing this. Suddenly, a loud bang came from the hall, hitting the door. It seriously frightened everyone behind it. Scared to death, Luo continued to boast, "Heh, I guess I won't have to because there aren't even any bones left." Rapidly turning around, Luo held out the green crystal to the manager standing behind him, offering a bribe to get something for himself. "Let me get you a video of the death. Give me a video of what happened in the hall. I want to watch it later." Refusing the offer, the confused manager replied, "Mr. Luo, you can't do that. We can't show our guests training." Moving even closer to the manager, looking at the poor man with an ominous look, he said, "What can a dead man have that is personal?" Suddenly a noise and the sound of blows came from the hall. The anxious people outside the door began to fuss again. What's going on? Is that guy still alive? 30 minutes passed. The noise was heard again and again from behind the door. Suddenly it became very quiet. Everyone was staring at the door with wide eyes. Is this a dream? Instantly, Luo turned to one of his henchmen and slapped him with all his might to test his feelings. Irritated by the slap, the henchman who received the slap immediately screamed, "Mr. Luo, why did you hit me?" Looking at his hand, the latter said, "It must have hurt, but it's not a dream." Looking at the crowd behind him, he confusedly said, "A first-ranked warrior defeated a fifth-ranked mutant gorilla? How the hell did that kid survive half an hour?" Exhausted from the battle, Jeng knelt down on one knee before his relatively strong opponent to rest for a while, but kept his weapon ready to react quickly, if necessary. The mutant gorilla was also exhausted from the long fight, losing most of his health. But then, gathering the last of its strength into a fist, the gorilla tried to strike Jung, dramatically closing the distance between them. Gathering all the strength in one punch, the gorilla hit only the ground, leaving another crater. Having dodged the attack, Jung sharply launched a counteroffensive as soon as he had the chance. By jumping up, he could reach the monster's belly while it was attacking, and by slicing it with his dagger, he inflicted more damage on his opponent. After the successful attack, Jeng suddenly felt the same familiar sensation and shouted, "It worked." Looking at his dagger, flickering just like the first time he had achieved the rank of a first-rank warrior, he said, "Yes, second-rank warrior." With his newfound strength, Jeng renewed his vigor in a series of attacks, and then jumped high to perform a falling attack. After dealing critical damage to the monster with his last attack, he jumped back to regroup and see if he could win. Instantly, the monster's body collapsed to the ground, and Jung boldly walked over its carcass. After defeating it, a notification immediately appeared. 7,200 experience points have been gained. Meanwhile, outside the training room, onlookers were already boiling with anticipation to find out the fight's results. And one of Luo's henchmen leaned against the door to better hear what was happening inside. "Mr. Luo, nothing seems to be happening. He's definitely dead now." Suddenly, after the noise in the hall stopped, The door opened abruptly. Jung, who had defeated the monster in the hall, stood there, flaunting himself in front of everyone. The fat man, leaning against the door, immediately fell to the ground, screaming in fright, "What the hell? Do I see a ghost?" However, everyone who saw Jung had a similar reaction. As Jung left the hall, he calmly told the manager standing nearby, "We need someone to clean this room." Luo's eyes widened in surprise. He stared at Jung in fright, and the crowd of onlookers began to discuss him even more lively. "He came in with the first rank, right? This is his first time training, and he's already raised his level to second. Who is he?" Jung walked slowly through the training center as the crowd moved around him. Everyone parted to form a lively road in front of him, discussing his fight. "That's him. He defeated a 6th-rank monster." As Jung approached the front desk, he once again approached the girl manager who had taken his first training session with a request. "Please open up another 6th-level training room." She was very embarrassed by this request, but equally embarrassed that the guy who had recently taken a task that was too much for her to handle was now standing before her. But despite everything that had happened, she continued her work, starting to fill out a new training application. Jen, who was standing behind her, pointed at the screen and said, "Give me that." Pulling out a green crystal, he offered it to her to pay for the entrance. As she held the payment, she whispered to herself in confusion, "The 6th level?" Upon learning of the boy's choice, the onlookers made a fuss again, marveling at his courage. A 6th-level mutant viper? He wants to fight a level 6 mutant viper? While some people shouted about how crazy he was, others were already placing bets on whether he would survive this time. Crazy. This guy is definitely crazy. Come on, I'm betting on you. Let's see if you can survive this time," they were saying. But these were not the only shouts at his back. There were also mournful speeches, but Jung confidently walked into the hall to achieve his goal, not hiding his impatient smile. "So young, and he decided to die," someone said behind him. Watching this whole spectacle from his office, Zhang Chen, a 7th-ranked warrior and the center's owner, was only burning with curiosity. Hey, interesting. Suddenly standing up, he asked his employee standing in his office, "Zhou Zhen? Are you sure he is a 2nd-ranked warrior?" As if at attention, the man stood in his office and replied anxiously, "I'm sure, and he was a 1st-ranked warrior before the battle with the mutant gorilla." Then the training center owner, adjusting his glasses, said slyly, "Turn on the hall's camera and live stream Zhou Zhen's training. Let the image be broadcast to the main hall's screens." Worried that this instruction might violate privacy rules, the worker said, "But we need the other party's permission." Jiang Chen didn't seem to care, answering, "I'll arrange it, robot, as ordered." When the employee left the office, the owner, smoking a cigar, exhaled the smoke and said to himself, "It doesn't matter if this kid wins or loses, but we can definitely make a lot of money on this video." Turning on the TV in the central hall, the noise of the 3 men died down, and only the occasional cheer could be heard. The day has come. Will they show someone live? "I heard that a 2nd-ranked warrior challenged a 6th-level mutant viper." "Are you kidding? Even a 7th-ranked warrior can't handle a venomous mutant viper. I could hardly see anything on the screen when I turned it on." A poisonous fog covered everything, and only surprised exclamations could be heard. Poisonous fog? What happened to the broadcast? Is it dead? Trapped in the poisonous fog, Zheng was slowly losing his health. The fog dealt long-lasting damage as long as the target was inside it. Taking the potion out of his pocket, Zheng opened it to use it. Surely the antidote from the game can be used here without any problems. Tipping the vial, he poured every last drop into himself to prevent the adverse effects of the fog. After drinking the potion, it immediately took effect, relieving the effects of the long-lasting poisoning and restoring Zheng's full life. Then he shouted to the monster, "Come on, show me how tough you are." Suddenly, a vast image appeared through the fog, showing ruby-colored eyes glowing. This look terrified everyone who saw it. And the TV screen still showed nothing because of the pile of fog. "I can't see anything." Is there a problem with the picture? How could that kid have survived so long in that poisonous fog? His speed. Seeing the fog shuddering as Zheng moved through it, one could get a rough idea of where he was and where he was going. Still, the observers were interested in something else. Can people move so visibly? Suddenly, the broadcast was interrupted because the camera inside the hall was broken. What happened? Was it a mutant viper? Being very tired from the fight's long duration and the monster's strength, Jung broke off and decided to take a break. Huh. 6th level. This is harder than I thought. However, his body began to overflow with energy as he achieved his goal again, saying, "However, I have raised my level again. I am now at the 3rd rank." Noticing the broken camera behind him, Jung was angry that his training could be seen and said, "I think I need to go talk to someone about this broadcast." Meanwhile, in the central hall, the TV screen showed only interference and a picture of the interrupted broadcast due to camera damage, and there were dissatisfied shouts. So who won in the end? How did it end? After finishing the fight, Jung left the hall, where his manager waited for him. "Mr. Zhou, our manager Jung Chen wants to see you. Please come this way." In a disgruntled voice, Jung replied, "I want to see him too." When he entered the manager's office, he immediately spoke in a stern tone. "I hope you will explain everything to me." Alarmed that Jung had reacted so aggressively to Jung Chen's prank, he told the boy, "Mr. Zhou Jung, calm down." After gesturing, one of the workers immediately approached him, holding a tray covered with a cloth. After placing the tray on the manager's desk, she left the room. At that time, Jiang Chen removed the cloth and said, "As an apology, we will reimburse you for your expenses today. Of course, this will not be enough, so we have prepared this for you." Presenting Zhang with a gold card, he handed it to the boy along with the crystals, adding, "This card. With it, you will have a 20% discount on all our services." After accepting the gifts, Zhang calmed down but emphasized, "You'd better not say anything about me." Hearing this, Jiang Chen nodded, "Of course, Mr. Zheng Zhou." As Zhang was leaving the office, he heard a shout after him. It was his supervisor, who was embarrassed and wanted to ask him something. "Mr. Zhang, may I ask you a personal question?" Adjusting his glasses, Zhang continued, "How did you manage to kill a level 6 mutant viper?" Looking back, Jen looked sternly at his interlocutor, speaking in irritation. "You like to pry into other people's secrets so much?" Seeing Zhang's reaction, Zhang abruptly fidgeted and spoke hurriedly. "I apologize, I misspoke. Mr. Zhou, how would you like to join the Beast King's sect? With our resources and your talent, you would definitely become a 6th-ranked warrior." Zheng replied as he left the room, "I would not," slamming the door on his way out. Having completed his training, Lan left the room, and everyone around him was discussing something vigorously. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would never have believed it. I really want to know who that guy is. There are so many talented people in the whole of Titan. The confused Do, unable to find his master, thought, "Where is the master? He could not have left me here alone and run away." Meanwhile, in his office, the boss was having a dialogue with a warrior. "That guy is only a 3rd-ranked warrior. You were a little too nice to him, don't you think?" the warrior said. "3rd rank? Potential cannot be measured by rank," the old man replied. Continuing to reproach himself, he spoke, "The live broadcast. I shouldn't have turned it on." Returning from training, Zheng examined his weapon and concluded, looking at the dagger, "It looks like it's useless." While thinking about where to buy a new weapon, he remembered his old friend. "By the way, I remembered that man said he had a shop. I need to buy a new dagger there." When he arrived at the shop, he was shocked at its size. "A shop of this size? I sold my wolfskins for nothing," he thought. Upon entering, he was immediately greeted by an old friend offering him hot tea. Sitting at the table and savoring the tea, Chang Zhang asked in surprise, "Brother, am I blind or what? Have you become a 3rd-ranked warrior in a few days?" Savoring his tea, Zhang answered him happily, "It's nothing. I just tried a little harder than the others." Hearing this answer, Chang Zhan replied excitedly, "If you don't want to talk, make a good excuse." After he had finished his drink, Zhang put the cup on the table and said, "Brother Chang, I have come because I want to buy some equipment from you." The other man answered immediately, "No problem. I can offer you several options. And one more thing," he added, taking out a monster's web from his belt pouch. "Brother Chang, will you take this?" Without restraining his emotions, he let out a stingy shaza of joy and said, "The web of a blue spider that glows. This is the best material for making equipment." He examined the web under a magnifying glass and added, "Such a rare material. It can only be obtained from a ghost spider. Looking at Jung, who had picked up his tea mug again, he said, "It seems that the rank theory doesn't work in your case at all." After examining the goods, Chang Jian mumbled in disappointment. "It's a pity I only have enough for 1 meter right now. How about 15 green crystals?" After receiving an agreement to his offer, Chang Jiang jumped up and down with joy. "Ha ha ha, I'm glad I got such a cool material. I'll go to the workshop and make a weapon for you for free." Once at the shop, Zheng was surprised to see how the weapons were made. "I didn't think you used such an old way of forging." But Chan told him something. Everything created by machines is sold to ordinary people, and after all, the weapons of warriors must have good conductivity, he emphasized. After some thought, Zheng said, "I know a little about conductivity. Star power can be injected into a weapon and thus strengthen its performance." Agreeing with Zheng's words, Chan added, "With the blue web, I will create a weapon for you that has a conductivity of at least 13%. Putting on his safety goggles and the rest of his work gear, he continued, "With this web, I may be able to shatter the myths about the 15% conductivity of Mr. Ning's weapon." With that, he set to work. After heating the metal, he began to add spider webs to it and create a mold for the future workpiece. When the dagger was ready, Chang handed it to Zheng and said, "Brother, you are very lucky." Reaching out to the weapon, Zheng was surprised at its lightness. "It's light," he said. Picking up the dagger, he directed a stream of star power directly to the weapon to test it. Seeing what Zheng was capable of, Chan thought, "This kind of power. This indicates that he's an 8th or 9th ranked warrior. I knew it." Seeing what the dagger he had just made was capable of, he was shocked. 20%? A blade with a conductivity of 20%? This dagger must be worth at least 1 purple crystal. And I gave it away. Walking away from Chan, Zheng, pleased with his new weapon, waved goodbye to the beast, saying, "Thank you very much, Brother Chang." But Brother Chang only answered him angrily, "Go! Hurry up! Before I change my mind!" Returning to the workshop, Chang growled, "I did it once, so I can do it again." On his way back, Zheng noticed a trio of bullies with whom he had had a verbal altercation in the training center. As he passed, one of the 3 spoke up, "Mr. Luo, this is the kid you fought with at the training center." Smiling ominously, Luo had already planned a fight to get back at Zheng. Fighting was forbidden in the training center, but outside, we can go beyond words. Worried, one of his gang members said, "That kid was able to defeat the mutant gorilla alone. He became angry with his henchman and slapped him in the face for what he had said. "You don't understand anything. This garbage, just read it. He is a 3rd-ranked warrior. How is this possible?" Suddenly confused, he froze in place. "A 3rd-ranked warrior? Didn't he have a 1st rank when he came out?" asked Luo. "That's right, and then he leveled up another 2, said the second of his henchmen. Angered even more, he kicked his second comrade. "Do you want me to repeat it? I don't care what rank he has now. Just kill him." As Zheng approached the girl selling flowers, he was choosing which ones to buy when he heard a voice behind him. "Well, kid, we finally meet again." Hearing a familiar voice behind him, Zheng realized who it could be. Meanwhile, the 3 bullies were already standing behind him. "Let's see if you'll be rude to us this time." Turning to face Luo, Zheng surprised him and asked, "Who are you?" Thus the bully was greatly confused. Enraged by this insolence, Luo ordered his henchmen to break both his legs. Trying to fulfill their master's order, the henchmen did not even have time to react, as both were defeated. Frightened by one of his servants lying on the ground and the other flying into a pillar, he simply froze. As a result of this fight, the girl who was selling flowers was in danger of ending her life right then and there. The pole that Zheng hit with one of his henchmen broke and flew straight at the girl, who stood there frozen with fright. As Zheng retreated to prevent the fight from dragging on, he saw that his actions might hurt the girl, and he could not stand aside. Turning around, he ran to her and pulled her down, saving her from the column that was about to land on the poor girl. He also ran past Luo, leaving him standing on the sidelines. Running with the rescued girl, Zheng kicked him so that he would not go unpunished. As a result of the kick, Luo lost his balance and flew right under the wooden column from under which Zheng rescued the girl. After rescuing the poor girl from danger and carrying her to safety, he asked her, "Are you okay?" He received only a frightened, "Uh-huh," on whose head the column had landed. Luo stood up and threatened Zheng. "How dare you touch me? Do you even know who I am?" After listening to all the accusations, Zheng said, "Whoever you are, you provoked me first." Smiling sarcastically, Luo continued to threaten his status and wanted to force Zhang to apologize for what he had done. Kneel down. Apologize. Otherwise, the Luo family will make you realize what the words, better to die than to live like this, mean. He had barely finished uttering all his threats when Zhang suddenly disappeared from his sight, and only the sound of someone's cold breath could be heard in the distance. When Zhang got behind the brazen man who wanted to show off, he kicked him in the calf. Luo fell to the ground in pain. Standing on his feet, Zhang looked down at him and said, "Most of all, I hate threats." Luo, writhing in excruciating pain, immediately began to apologize. "I'm sorry, I made a mistake." By then, a crowd of onlookers had gathered at the noise and discussed what had happened. What a brave kid, not even afraid of the Luo family. Brave, but foolish. Alas. Leaving the scene of his debut, Zhang thought, in this world survival of the fittest, the Luo family, I don't mind if you become my springboard. A short time later, Luo was already in the hospital, lying in bed with his leg bandaged and broken. After meeting with the head of Luo's family, the doctor said, "Mr. Luo, of course we can try, but your son's leg is shattered, and even if he recovers, he will suffer consequences." Hearing this information, the father asked tremblingly, "Will this affect his ability to be promoted?" The doctor hesitated and said uncertainly, "Yes, it will. His channels are damaged. Probably." Hearing the doctor's alarming conclusions, the father shouted, "No, it can't be!" Meanwhile, Luo, lying on the hospital bed, shedding tears, cried out, "Father, it's all because of that boy named Zhou Zhang. You must avenge me." Hearing his son's words, the father became angry with him and shouted, "Wretched man, dare you complain?" Standing in front of the window in the ward, the father muttered to himself, "He is a third-ranked warrior. How could he beat a fourth-ranked warrior? Who is this Zhou Zhang?" He called one of his men over and ordered, "Abin, find out everything about this Zhou Zhang." "Of course," the servant replied. Still standing in front of the window, Father Luo looked confused and said, "Whoever you are, you dared to insult my son, and you will have to pay for it." On his way back from training, Zheng wondered where else he could make money. "Money has been tight lately. I need to find some way to make some extra money." As he walked forward, Zheng suddenly heard someone shouting, "Master, master, we meet again!" He looked back and saw the guys he had recently sold the hunting information to. "Thanks to your help, we've accomplished the mission," said Xiaohang. "Really? That's great," Zheng replied. Pointing to Zheng to introduce him to the others, the commander said, "Brothers, this is the master we told you about." Bowing, the guy from the team greeted Zheng. "Greetings, master." Feeling uncomfortable with the situation, Zheng said, Perhaps you could call me something else." Putting his hand on Zheng's shoulder, the commander said, "Brother, you are too humble. You have risen from a novice to a third-ranked warrior in these few days. If you are not a master, then who is?" Continuing his story, Xiaoheng said something interesting. "Our team is about to go to Weicheng County. Do you want to come with us?" Zheng was very interested in this offer. "If you have the money," Zheng said, hoping to earn some crystals because he desperately needed money. "Then, of course, I will go with you." Once they reached the central square, they began recruiting for the team for the upcoming trip. "We need strong warriors, preferably from the 5th rank." Watching the whole recruitment process, Zheng thought, "It's very similar, almost like a game." Continuing his call, the commander said, "The destination is Weicheng County, and the reward is 1 medium blue crystal." Suddenly, a voice came from the crowd. "Do you need men?" Paying attention to the location from which it came, it turned out that it was a 6th-ranked warrior. Upon seeing him, there was a commotion. A 6th-ranked warrior? Why did a 6th-ranked soldier come here to look for work? Holding out his hand to the volunteer recruit, the commander said, "Yes, we need people." In response, he heard a dissatisfied voice say, "I can join you temporarily, but the reward must be more than 1 blue crystal." Hearing this, the commander said in confusion, We can distribute the rewards as the mission progresses. How about that?" Angered by this suggestion, the 6th-ranked soldier said, "Are you kidding me? Will you earn anything at all? Do I have to die for a few white crystals?" Meanwhile, sitting in the pickup truck's trailer, Zheng took out his bow, thinking, "While no one is around, I'll take out a weapon so that no one will reveal that I have a game bag." Looking at his improved weapon with a smile, he thought, Brother Chan said that he used spider webs to increase the conductivity of my bow to 11%, but I don't know if it's good. Climbing into Jung's trailer, the warrior spoke to him mockingly. Hey, are you playing with your bow too? But your bow can only kill a wild hare, right? He pulled out his bow from behind his back and showed it to Jang to show off. This is a product of the 100 Knives Company, and it has a conductivity of 5%. This is what you call a bow. As he passed, one of Chao Heng's team members spoke to Jang. Master, the wind is too strong. Get inside. But Jang refused the offer, arguing that it was good no matter how intense the wind was. A warrior sitting in the trailer with Jang looked at him with a mocking finger. Master? If he's a master, then what am I? A super master? The car stopped after leaving the central square and heading out of the city of Titan to the Solnechny market. After stopping, the doors opened and Xiao Heng got out saying, Gentlemen, let's do some shopping here first. While waiting for the captain to return, Jung was spotted by locals greeting him. Hey, the madman. Crazy, why did it take you so long to come to us? In return, Jung greeted them. Haha, hi brother Li, hi brother Zhao. Also noticing Jang, Uncle Wang approached him and handed him a bottle of medicinal herbs. Crazy man, look, these herbs are our family heirloom that I found a few days ago. I don't need them, so take them, he said to him. Embarrassed by this offer, Jang tried to refuse. Uncle Wang, I can't. Sitting in the trailer with Jang, Warrior was envious. Are these people blind? Why are they sucking up to a third-ranked warrior like this? Deciding to show off in front of everyone, the warrior stood up and began to stretch, saying, Wow, the weather is so nice today. Thinking, a bunch of peasants, I'll show you who's the master. But despite all the warrior's antics, no one even paid attention to him, and everyone continued to converse with Jung. The warrior was shocked that no one paid attention to him because he was so strong and no one cared about him. When the whole team had bought their gear, they started to leave the market. As they left the market, the locals wished Jung good luck and to be careful not to get hurt. Sitting in the trailer, Jang looked at the medicine Uncle Wen had given him and evaluated it. The medicine smells nice, although its effect is not comparable to the health potion. I don't have much of it. I'd better save it for emergencies. Suddenly, a warrior called out to Jang, who thought, Hey! Looking at Jang, he said, I advise you to switch to a rifle in the future. But Jang refused his suggestion, saying, I'm already used to the bow, to which he replied, You're just a poser. While they were talking, time passed faster, and they arrived at their destination, the outskirts of Baicheng. They heard someone honking their horns behind them as they exited their cars and approached the location. They saw another gang getting out of their cars behind them, who had also come here to hunt. Recognizing these people, the commander turned to Jing and warned, This bastard is a mad bear. We should be more careful. After the incident, their team set out on the road, going through an abandoned area surrounded by monsters. As they passed through this location, they encountered a few zombies, which the commander successfully eliminated with his sword, clearing the way. The zombies began to attack more and more often from different directions. But the rest of the team did not stand aside. When they saw another zombie, they shot it with a bow. Admiring the mercenary's skills, Jang rejoiced and continued to praise him. Good shot. Moving forward, the commander saw a small group of zombies and said, We have to break through the shopping street in these 5 bends. Otherwise, there will only be more zombies. Jung found crystals in the dead monsters and said to the mercenary, Look, 2 blue crystals are not so bad. The warrior replied rudely, What are you doing here? Did you come to see the sights? Jang replied, Except for you, everyone on the team favors the labor division. So if I don't work, I won't earn any money, unlike you. You have to work hard for the reward. The warrior just agreed with him. After Jung's words, the warrior began beating up all the zombies he encountered to earn more money. Watching the warrior work, everyone was shocked. No wonder he's a 6th-ranked warrior so strong, said Xiao Heng. Commander, our money is worth it. His comrade supported him. Moving forward, they reached an area surrounded by high-level mutant zombies, poisonous zombies of the 30th level. After surveying the area, one of the team members said, All of the zombies surrounding the shopping street are mutants. It's too dangerous to continue fighting them manually. Hearing this, a 6th-ranked mercenary warrior volunteered to go after them, pulling out his bow and saying, I will try. He took out an arrow, pulled the string, and hit one of the zombies squarely in the head, knocking it unconscious. Seeing this shot, Jeng was as surprised as a child and began to praise the warrior again, saying, Wow, what a cool technique. But then he changed his face and said, "Okay, it's time for me to stretch a little and take a break. I'll take care of them." Following behind, Xiaoheng said, "Master, these zombies are nothing like the ones before." The mercenary started panicking. "Do you really think you're a master? If you want to die, leave us out of this." Holding his bow in his hands, Zheng abruptly rushed into the crowd of zombies to overcome them. Taking 3 arrows in his hand and pulling on the bowstring, he prepared to shoot, thinking only one thing: I can't let this much experience go to waste. Jumping from one zombie to another, he precisely hit each target and neutralized them. Running away, the warrior spoke to the commander. "Commander Xiao, I don't understand why you hired him. Disorganized, undisciplined, arrogant." He got angry when he didn't hear an answer to his question. He again addressed the commander in a rude tone. "Commander Xiao, I'm talking to you." However, the commander would not have been able to pay attention to the warrior because he was mesmerized by what he saw. He was overcome by a mute agony that would not end. As he got closer, he also fell into a stupor, only managing to shout out one word describing the situation before him. In front of him, he saw Zheng, who had defeated almost all the enemies and cleared the way further, easily breaking through the zombie lines. Killing zombies gave him 700 experience points for each monster he defeated. When he noticed no more enemies left, he finally stopped. Standing still, he thought, "Finally, everything is clear. It seems that I'm going to be promoted to level 30 today. I can learn a new technique." Standing there, his mouth wide open, the mercenary could only say, 3 minutes. Is he even human? Turning to his team, Zheng called them. "It's over. Help me collect the arrows. Some can still be used." To which he only heard an unintelligible, "You, good, good." Everyone started shouting, "Cool! Master, Supermaster!" Continuing to admire what they saw. The discussions continued, with some saying, "I told you that there are devils in the quiet." In contrast, others exclaimed, "You are my idol." Meanwhile, a mercenary warrior of the 6th rank went to collect crystals from the prey to speed up the collection process. As he approached the zombie corpse, he swung his knife and stabbed at the place where the crystal might be. Having hit the right spot, a blue crystal immediately fell out. Seeing this, his friend immediately ran up to him. Taking the crystal in his hands, he said, "Brother, you are lucky. I got the blue crystal by striking it once." Pulling an arrow from a zombie lying nearby, the boy said, "By the way, the master said that the arrows can be used again." Listening to all this, the mercenary thought, "I am a warrior of the 6th rank, and I can handle corpses. Why do I have to help a 3rd-ranked warrior collect arrows?" Pointing to a place nearby at the end of the road, the commander said, "Brothers, the main part of the shopping street is nearby." As he continued giving orders, he called his 2 comrades over and said, "Lu Chu, Meng Man, go back for the pickup truck. When you start the car, the sound will attract a new batch of poisonous zombies." After saying this, he turned his attention to the mercenary and Zheng. "So, soon, gentlemen, we will have to disturb you again." Suddenly, Zheng stood up and bowed his bow to one of his comrades in arms, asking, "Please, hold this." Pulling out his dagger, Zheng offered the mercenary a bet. "Shall we fight?" Pulling out his spear and striking the ground with it, the warrior accepted his offer with the words, "So be it. Let's see who is who." Hearing the answer, Zheng suddenly rushed off at breakneck speed, saying, "Then I will be the first." Deftly sidestepping the enemies, he attacked them from behind, thus quickly hitting their weak points and immediately neutralizing them. During the battle, he used his skills and felt great. The system of a thief combined with the star power of a warrior. My God, what a wonderful feeling. As he stood there and watched Zheng deftly destroy his enemies, he sighed, "I've lost." Standing behind him, one of the team members said to the leader, "Commander, take a look at Brother Master's weapon." Hearing his comrade's words, Zhang Xun looked at Zheng's dagger and was surprised. "This is a high-conductivity weapon." As he saw this fantastic weapon reflected in his eyes, a thought entered his mind. If I am not mistaken, the conductivity of this dagger is higher than any weapon I have ever seen, if I can take it from him. But then he realized how disgusting his thoughts were and slapped his hands over his face to collect himself. "Calm down. I'd rather go kill a 7th-level mutant." After he regained his composure and prepared for the fight, he continued, "Besides, for me, Zhang Xun, this is a dirty job." As he began to fight, destroying one enemy after another, he struck another monster, shouting, "Die!" Standing in the middle of the battlefield, having killed all the enemies, Zheng said joyfully, "One more level." Suddenly, hearing footsteps behind him, he turned around and saw a mercenary stretching out his hand to him. The mercenary said, "Master, my name is Zhang Xun. It is a pleasure to meet you. Shaking hands, Zheng replied, Zhou Zheng, and I am not a master at all. To which he heard, don't be so lowly. You absolutely deserve this. I dare say that even our commander, a 7th-ranked warrior, is not as strong as Wang. Hearing the sound of the engine, everyone realized that the pickup truck had reached the gathering place, and the guys ran out shouting with joy, We made it! Brothers, we will make a lot of money this time. Standing aside, Zhang Shun could only think about what he had heard. I wish I was dead. What nerve! What a bunch of simpletons! Why do I have to pretend? I want a fixed reward. Suddenly, one of the team members running toward them started calling for the captain to warn him of the danger. Commander, there's a huge zombie! Pointing behind him where the giant was, he continued to approach his comrades, and behind him, at some distance, the giant walked. Seeing the critical threat, the commander ordered, Everyone to the car, immediately retreat. As he was retreating to the cars, he saw Zheng standing still and said, Brother Joe, get in the car. Drawing his dagger and preparing to defend himself, he replied, You go. His speed is much faster than the truck's, and someone has to stop him. Otherwise, we will lose everything we have gathered today. As everyone packed into the cars, Zheng watched the crowd of zombies and the giant approach him closer and closer. Watching this spectacle, Zheng just sighed heavily, preparing for another fight. When the giant reached a certain distance from the team, he lifted an old, broken-down car standing next to him. The next moment, he threw it at the people who were nearby. Finally, he hit a pickup truck before him, missing none of the team. Preparing for the attack, Zheng fought and said to his comrades, Hurry up. If you stay here, you will only be in the way. Watching Zheng stay behind to cover the team's retreat, Zhang Shun thought, It seems I underestimated this guy after all, as he sat in the pickup truck trailer. The next moment, he shouted to the captain, He's right, I believe him. We have to get out of here. After getting into the trunk of the mercenary's truck, the commander, moving away from Zheng, shouted to him one last time, Brother Joe, we will be waiting for you on the highway. Hearing this, Zheng gestured to them with an OK sign. When the giant saw the cars driving away, he immediately jumped at Zheng to strike him. But Zheng reacted quickly and rushed at the giant to try to counterattack it in the air. Hey giant, I'm here, he shouted. Watching Zheng fight, Zhang Shun could only wonder how a 3rd-ranked warrior could have such a powerful strength. When Zheng exchanged a few blows with the giant and fell to the ground, he used his weak scanning ability. After analyzing the weaknesses, he smiled and charged at the giant, exclaiming, You don't have as many weaknesses as I thought. But having discovered the weaknesses, he decided not to waste time and to finish the fight as soon as possible. He used one of his techniques, jumping attack. 10 minutes passed after the fight started. The whole team was waiting for Zheng to return to the highway, looking for him through binoculars. Suddenly, one of the team members asked the commander, The master hasn't returned yet, has he? To which a rude reply followed, Shut up! But Zhang Shun, sitting in the trailer, calmly replied, This madman has enough power that we don't have to worry about him. Suddenly, one of the observers looking through his binoculars exclaimed in a joyful voice, He's back! The master is coming back! As they watched him stroll back down the road, they all began to cheer. He is indeed the master. He's okay, right? As Zheng approached his team, he threw a blue crystal into one of them's hands, saying, If we're all on the same team, then of course we have to share the spoils. This was followed by a surprised response. You fought that giant zombie by yourself? Meanwhile, Zhang Shun, who was sitting in the car, marveled at the boy's skills. He was able to get that blue crystal by himself, his strength, his energy. Approaching Zheng, the commander immediately smiled and said, Brother Joe, from now on I will serve only you. There was dead silence, surprising everyone. But then it was interrupted by an appeal. Brother Joe! Zhang Shun addressed him. You're powerful, I surrender, he said, showing him the class gesture with his hand. Suddenly, the Mad Bear gang rode up to them, and one of them exclaimed, Huh? Not a bad catch. Looking at them, the commander replied dismissively, Much better than those cowards who ran away. Hearing this, the wounded sitting in the trailer of the Mad Bear unit were embarrassed. Hearing such disrespectful words addressed to him, the unit commander became very angry and removed the safety of his rifle. Rising to his feet, Zhang Shun, sitting in the pickup truck trailer, decided to deal with it, thinking, Not a moment's peace. Turning to the bullies, he shouted menacingly, Hey, are you looking for a fight? Seeing an opponent of this caliber, one of the squad members who had been injured shouted out in fright, Boss, they really hired a 6th-ranked warrior? Seeing the grave threat, they were frightened and decided to retreat, saying, "We are leaving." Looking after them, Jiang Shun said, "A bunch of lowlifes who can only threaten the weak." As he watched, Zheng thought, high rank decides everything in this world. I need to speed up immediately. It had been 3 days since Zheng and his friends had hunted in the countryside, and he decided to raise his rank. After defeating several monsters, he opened the stats window to see what level he had reached. After practicing hard and hunting different monsters, he finally reached level 30. Finally level 30, he said as he looked at the stats and skills window. As he looked at his stats, another monster was already standing above him. Seeing it, Zheng said, "I need to try harder. My rank should be raised soon. Pew." Meanwhile, Abin, who had been ordered to find out everything about Zheng, brought his master, who had broken his leg at night, to Zheng's house. Luo, approaching Zheng's house, said menacingly, "Zhou Jing, I will let you find out how it feels to want to die." After reaching a new level, he collected crystals from defeated monsters. As he took a crystal from another monster, he saw a strange green glow behind him that caught his attention. Watching from behind the bushes, he saw a man surrounded by monsters. Green star power. A 7th-ranked warrior. Aiming his bow from the perch, Zheng thought he must be famous in Titan. Meanwhile, the 7th-ranked warrior barely held back the onslaught of enemies who outnumbered him. Standing behind him, Zheng shot his bow to draw the monster's attention to himself and give the warrior a chance to retreat. When everyone noticed the presence of another candidate on the battlefield, Zheng was already drawing his next arrow. Seeing a convenient moment to retreat, Zhang Xiaoqi rushed toward Zheng, shouting, "Brother, help me! There will be benefits for you here!" Hearing these words about the necessary help, Zheng again shot several arrows at the enemies to destroy the pursuers. As the warrior ran by him, Zheng said, "You take care of that one, and I'll take care of the 2 remaining." After the battle ended in victory, Zhang Xiaoqi asked him, "What is your name? A 3rd-ranked warrior suddenly killed 2 gorillas so easily?" Zheng looked at the crystal he had taken from the defeated enemy and said, "Zhou Zheng. I thought you were talking about some kind of benefit." Suddenly, Zhang's face changed dramatically, and he spoke with a serious look, threateningly. "Hey kid, you dare to ask me that? Aren't you afraid I'll kill you?" To which Zheng calmly replied, "You can't kill me." Immediately, Zhang's expression changed from sternness to fear, and thoughts began to appear in his mind. Why do I feel that he is very dangerous? But having dispelled the heavy atmosphere, the warrior laughed loudly, holding a treasure in his hand. Holding out the bamboo cylinder to Zheng, he said, "Monkey treasure, you've earned a lot this time." Smoking a cigarette after a hard battle, Zhang Xiaoqi began his story. "It took me a week to lure the monkey leader and most of them here, and you came ready to go," he said. Zheng replied, "If it wasn't for me, you would have died here long ago, so you're lucky too." After exchanging a few words, Zhang Xiaoqi suggested something to Zheng. "There are no more than 10 people in all of Titan who can look me in the eye, and you are one of them. I plan to form a warrior alliance in a while. Will you come?" "No question," Zheng replied. On the way home, Zheng thought about another interesting purchase. Not a bad haul. Maybe I should think about buying a shop for Su Junwen so that she doesn't get bored at home every day. Standing before Zheng's house, Luo ordered his watchdogs to destroy everything. Hearing the order, his subjects began to break down the front gate and destroy everything in their path. Hearing a noise in the courtyard, Su Junwen ran outside to see what was happening. When she saw the 2 robbers, she started screaming, "What are you doing?" When Lao saw the girl, he smiled sarcastically and said, "What did you say? Grab her and interrogate her thoroughly." The servants grabbed the girl and took her to Lao. She in turn resisted and tried to break free from their hands, shouting, "Let me go!" Suddenly, hearing the screams, Lan Shi came running to the noise and ordered them to stop their actions. When Lan saw what was happening, he shouted at Lao, "You son of a bitch, let her go!" Without turning to Lan, Lao said to himself, "Ah, Zhou Zheng's dog." He looked at his henchmen with a fearsome glare and said to them, "Kill him!" On the way home, many people gathered outside Zheng's house, discussing what had happened. What a horror. Who allows the Luo family to do this? As he approached the gate, he saw Lan Shi lying in the gate. "Lan Shi!" Zheng shouted as he ran to him. Running up to Lan Shi, Zheng began to check his condition, saying, "Lan Shi." All he heard in response was an apology. "I'm sorry. I didn't," he said finally. After he said this, A river of blood gushed from his throat, which he began to cough up and eventually fainted. Looking at his friend in alarm, Zhang only repeated repeatedly, Lan Shi. Immediately after seeing what he saw, he called an ambulance and sent Lan to the hospital. Sitting in the operating room, he waited for the doctor's verdict. After the operation, the doctor left and went to Zhang to tell him everything. Doctor, Zhang asked. His life is saved, but his limbs. When he went to see Lan, he saw his friend lying under a ventilator, looking at him with sad eyes. Recalling the moment he was walking home, he heard the following phrase from people outside his house. Who allows the Luo family to do this? Boiling with anger, Zheng concluded. The Luo family means Luo Tianyu? When he arrived at the Luo family's house, he was serious. Are you ready to withstand my wrath? He said, holding a jar of green substance in his hand. In the interrogation room, Luo was already preparing to interrogate Su Junwen, smiling ominously and licking his lips. Ready he. One of his henchmen behind him asked Luo Tianyu, Sir, shall we begin interrogation? Hearing this, Lao was boiling with anger, but he kept his emotions in check and replied calmly to his henchman. We will interrogate him well, but... Turning to his henchman, he shouted at the top of his lungs, unable to contain his anger. Hey, what are you doing here? Go away! Yes, sir, the servant replied, frightened. Looking at Su Junwen, Luo said to himself, Zhou Zhen, you will regret this for the rest of your life. He poured cold water into a bucket over Su so she would wake up and the interrogation could begin. Looking at the girl, Luo Tianyu said, I must admit that such beauty is a rarity in Titan. Pulling out a knife and taking it in his right hand, he continued in a menacing tone, Zhou Zhen must really like you. He continued his cruel game as he ran the knife over her body. But just hurting you won't be enough. I'm going to ruin your beautiful face. As Luo approached her, he realized that he would not be able to reach her because she was too tall for his chair, and he began to shout to his servants, Hey you, who tied her up so high? Having brought the girl down one level to Luo, he continued to threaten her with a knife, offering her one way out. If you agree to be my girlfriend, I won't touch you. When his offer was rejected, he became furious and swung the knife and shouted, Are you suicidal? You almost got it right, Zheng said, standing behind him and putting his blade to Luo Tianyu's throat. He muttered in surprise. He bent down and whispered in his ear, You are the only one who is suicidal here. As Zheng untied the rope to free his friend, he spoke to her. Sorry, I'm a little late. As soon as he freed Su Junwen from the ropes, she immediately ran into her master's arms, glad he had arrived at the very last moment and saved her. Taking Su on his shoulders, he carried her outside, away from all danger, so she would not suffer. Once he was far enough away, he sat her down on a tree and said, Wait for me here, and do not make a sound. Trying to stop her master, Su grabbed his leg and began to beg, Master, don't go back there. But Zheng took her hands and spoke to her. They are all dead. There is nothing you can do about it. And, jumping back, he added, Don't worry about me like that, but wait for me here. Meanwhile, a conversation occurred in Luo's father's office. Abin, did Tianyu go looking for this Zhou Zheng today? The family leader asked his subject. Yes, I didn't find him, but I brought a girl, the servant replied. Angered by his son's behavior, the father shouted angrily, You fool, you think about girls all day. Seeing his master's violent reaction, Abin asked, Shall I go and wake up my master? Pacing angrily by the window, his father replied angrily, Okay, no need for now. Suddenly, there was a rustling outside the door. Abin prepared for battle in a fighting stance. Who is it? He shouted. Father Luo just hummed as he watched. Suddenly looking into the void, he said, You're not bad at hiding your presence. Too bad your rank is too low. Standing in front of them, Zheng only surprised them. You're Zhou Zheng? Asked Luo Guohai. Standing before them, Zheng answered them firmly. Yes, as he assessed the situation. Is that the aura of an 8th-ranked warrior? It's a good thing I did some research before coming here. Sitting in his chair and lighting a cigar, Luo Guohai said, Excellent, kill him. It will be done, Abin replied. Having received the order, Abin rushed into the fight with Zheng, hoping to deal with him quickly since he was only the 3rd rank. However, Zheng deftly dodged Abin's attack and stabbed him in the back while he was opening up for an attack. Watching the fight, Luo Guohai commented, He's fast. But your attacks are nothing but a tickle to Abin. Feeling nothing, Abin abruptly rose to attack again, only laughing at Zheng's attacks. but he immediately felt a pain in his back in the place where Jung had hit him. This was an unexpected turn of events for him. Seeing that the enemy was startled by the surprise, Jung said, "System skills are too strong. Even for a thick-skinned bastard like you, there's no point resisting." Angry that Jung was able to harm him, Abin mindlessly rushed at him, screaming, "Die!" However, his attack was quickly repelled, and Jung dealt him critical damage, thus defeating Abin with a single blow. Then, approaching Luo Guohai, Jung said, "Now it's your turn." Rising from his chair, Guohai said, "Young man, you certainly have some extraordinary talent." Flashing angrily and destroying the table before him, he continued, "But you're getting too carried away." Suddenly outside, the guards heard a strange noise from the building. "It's coming from the boss's office," said one of the guards. After gathering all the guards in front of the building, an order was given. "Full alert." Watching everything happening outside and hearing everything coming from inside and outside, Su sat in a tree, waiting for her master, only able to pray and hope. When Su Junwen heard the order to go inside, she said, "Things are getting worse." Standing opposite each other, Luo Guohai told Jung, "There are at least 30 fourth-ranked warriors here. You can't escape." But Jung was not at a loss and shouted, "Did I say I was going to escape?" Running into Luo Guohai's room, the guards brought him the terrible news. "Boss, there's trouble, master. He's—" Confused by what the guard said, Guohai let his guard down and asked again, "Tianyu, what's wrong with him?" Hearing the head of the family's question, Jung answered, "I killed him first to have fun with you." When the father heard about his son's death, he went into a rage, shouting back, "What did you say?" Meanwhile, the frightened guards confirmed Jung's words, continuing to speak, "Boss, he really is." Guohai lowered his hands, frozen at the news. "No, it can't be," he repeated. And Jung, having noticed a weakness in the opponent's defense, could not miss such a convenient opportunity. As Jung launched his attack, Luo Guohai glared at him with his big eyes and roared, "I will tear you to pieces." But while he was saying this, Jung had already used his instant attack skill to stab Guohai in the stomach. Realizing that he could not pierce his opponent, Jung immediately froze, thinking, "An 8th-ranked warrior is that strong?" Recovering from the unexpected attack, Guohai waved his hand and shouted at Jung, "Die!" Punching with all his might, his attack missed Jung. He, in turn, was able to dodge the deadly attack. Swinging his sword in all directions, Luo Guohai tried to hit Jung with his flurry of blows, but he failed. Observing the enemy's movements, Jung saw a specific pattern of which blow followed which and began to wait for the right opportunity. After waiting for the right moment to attack, the guy rushed to the enemy, shouting, "Now!" He couldn't let this opportunity pass him by, so he used his instant attack skill again to strike amid the barrage of attacks. Getting as close as he could, Jung again hit the same spot as last time.